City Council meeting to order. If everyone can please rise for a moment of reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Sorry. Mrs. Franson?
Here.
Mrs. Hoover?
Here.
Ms. Royce? I'm here. Mrs. Bowling? Here. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Girton?
Here.
Mr. Braden?
Here. We have all members present this evening. Moving on to amendment of the agenda. We only have two items. Well, we have two things and they're being removed. So the Law Ordinance, Human Resources, and Compliance Committee report, we will remove that, and we will remove the 5 sets of minutes. Mr. Girton.
Make a motion that we amend the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Girton to amend as stated. Mr. Braden.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce? I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am. All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to the next item is the special presentation. Chief Sumner.
Thank you. All right, before I get started, I do want to read a little update about an incident that we had last week, just to keep you guys updated. So as you are aware by now, on April 16th, 2025, at approximately 10:48, Norwood police officers responded to a report of loose dogs and a male and female behaving erratically near the Ohio Media School. Officers located individuals in the stairwell elevator. After de-escalation attempts failed, officers attempted to detain the individual. During this attempt, the male subject became combative, resisted officers in all efforts to gain compliance. After a prolonged and violent struggle, officers were able to restrain him with handcuffs. The male was checked on the scene by paramedics, and he was transported to UC Hospital. A Norwood officer was also transported, but to Mercy Hospital for injuries sustained during the altercation. While en route to UC Hospital, the male, who's now been identified as 40-year-old Akeem Allen Holtz, experienced a medical emergency and unfortunately was pronounced deceased upon arrival. To ensure transparency and public trust, I immediately requested that BCI, who is an independent outside agency, respond in to investigate the circumstances surrounding the incident. As of this time, the incident is currently under thorough review by BCI, as well as the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office, as well as our Criminal Investigation Section. We are committed to fully cooperating with all reviewing agencies, and we will release additional information as they become available. We take incidents like this very seriously, and we remain committed to upholding the highest standard of professionalism that your community expects. All right. Now I'll move on to my 2024 annual report. I see the school board is here, so if they get tired of me talking, they can carry me out. I won't mind. So some of the goals, this carries over from 2024 into 2025. We'll talk a little bit later about auto crashes. They're pretty hot and heavy in Norwood. We're always trying to diversify our police department. We had a change of personnel at the beginning of the year. We have a female now, that's our public information officer. And we have a female that's assigned to our training program as an instructor. So that's always an ongoing thing that we would like to do. We have a great community engagement team that we're going to continue building upon. Last year, I talked about the Ohio Collaborative. They had since, and we'll go more in depth about that later, but they have since added 2 more groups to those policies. And we're going to increase our training and as well as officer wellness. And obviously, after an event like what happened last week, this is a big thing. The average individual over their lifetime will experience 2 to 4 critical incidences in their lifetime. A police officer will experience up to 600 of those. So everything starts with officer wellness. If we don't have cops in the right frame of mind and their head's not in the game, then it has a trickle down effect through policy violations, attendance problems. I mean, there's a plethora of things that can go south. So we're going to continue working on that. I know Lieutenant Vickers did an awesome job on Monday getting peer support team and PEEP in to speak to the officers. And that was we saw a lot of positive feedback with that. I'm going to skip that one. Our structure, our organizational structure, just to give people that don't know how we are structured, it's chief of police. So I have 4 lieutenants underneath me, 8 sergeants, 33 police officers. On the right-hand side is our non-sworn staff, secretary to chief. We have 2 police clerks. One now is on day shift. One now is on second shift. That helps out with all the data entry for the night shift officers. And we've seen a decrease in errors being entered there. We had 4 auxiliary officers. We had 1 retire last week, so we're down to 3. So we have a total of 52 employees under police department's command. Because we did some personnel changes this year, we now have a patrol lieutenant who's in charge of day shift. We have a patrol lieutenant who's in charge of night shift. So there's more of a hierarchy there. And then our canine officer who works still on night shift, he kind of rotates his hours. Some patrol statistics here. We had 86 OVI arrests last year. It's about the same as the year before. Our auto accidents, as you can see, is 735. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Our business checks are up. Our residential vacation checks are greater than they were last year. Directed patrols are up, and our park checks are up by about 150 from the year before. So everything has been increasing in 2024. When we talk about our auto accidents, we came in at 735 last year, and that's compared to 648 the year before. The top 5 crash locations is obviously 71 US 22, which is Montgomery Road, 561 Smith Road, and our 20 feet of Madison Road over at Madison and Edwards near Rookwood. In bold, number 2 and 3, they're always up there pretty high because that's some main thoroughfares. But we believe that the increase in this year's traffic count is because the lateral was closed. So you had all that traffic diverting from the lateral, getting off at Smith Road, and then coming on to US 22 and Montgomery Road. Traffic stop data, as you can see, we stopped about 3,295, 3,300 cars on traffic stops last year. Our cite and caution ratio is pretty much almost the same. In a real world, your cautions should be more than your cites because we're not a money generating unit. We stop cars and we cite cars because of their driving behavior, and that's what we try to change. So we should have more cautions than cites. Those are 50-50. I will tell you that probably next year when I'm up here giving this speech, there'll be a lot more cited than cautions because we're about to go into a traffic enforcement campaign. When we talk about part 1 and part 2 crimes, we have our violent crimes and our nonviolent sections. These are reported to the Department of Justice, the FBI, and they keep track of how much crime and what crime is occurring in cities. As you can see on the violent crime section there, if you add all those up, we're 18% on the decrease than we were the year before. So those are pretty phenomenal numbers there. It looks like arson, we had 1 arson compared to 0 last year. Rapes are down. Our aggravated assaults are right around the same. Our burglaries are down, which creates the huge decrease. Our robberies are down by a couple, and we had no homicides last year. On the nonviolent section, those are down by 11%. So that's, I think, mostly contributed to the domestic violences there. So we have missing persons and overdoses and fail to comply. Those aren't necessarily crimes, but I noted them on here because I think they're important for the community to know what's happening. How many missing people do we have out there? Overdoses. The fail to complies are probably going to go into more along the line of those are reports where we go to stop a car and they take off. It doesn't fit it doesn't fit the policy for a pursuit to be initiated, but we still log these just to show how many vehicles are taken off from us on a normal day. As you can see, the sex offenses are about the same. Possession of drugs are the same. The domestic violence has decreased from 69 in 2023 down to 50. Our criminal trespass is lower, and then our criminal damaging is staying about the same. So all in all, our violent crime is down 18%. Our nonviolent crime is down 11%. So I think those are pretty positive numbers. Thefts are where we have our problems at. So we have our motor vehicle thefts were down last year from 101 to 76. Our theft from motor vehicles are right around the same. And our shoplifting, we had 100 more shoplifting cases than the year before. And that's straight up retail theft. So all of those thefts combined gives us an increase of 11% throughout the year for thefts. We'll talk about our criminal investigation section here. They're commanded by one lieutenant. They have 4 detectives that is assigned casework with them. And then on the other side, we have our undercover drug unit task force that's led by a sergeant, 2 agents, and then we have an additional agent that's assigned to the DEA task force down at the federal building. So our CIS section, they obviously investigate serious crimes, homicides, robberies, felonious assault, burglaries. They utilize modern technology, modern tools, DNA to solve a lot of cases. They play a key role in handling sex offenses. Those type of cases require significant time, experience, collaboration with courts and other social services. The way that we have it set up over there is the new detectives that are over in that office, they don't get a sexual assault case assigned to them until they have at least more than a year of training and experience, because those are fragile cases. CIS, along with Auxiliary Rich, they also manage our evidence room, which is full-time. They make sure that our evidence is properly handled, properly organized, compliance with protocols, retention, destruction. And they did go through, I believe, with their weapons destruction a couple weeks ago, I think, that you guys authorized. I think Lieutenant Fair wanted me to tell you that. It's all good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Last year, our detectives were assigned 491 cases. That's an increase of over 82 the year before. Retail theft, because it's risen, it used to be around 40% of the cases for CIS. Now it's more than half. They also take care of our NIBIN and E-Trace firearm processing. And what that is several years ago, our detectives took the steps to get us involved in the E-Trace and NIBIN. And that is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network through the ATF. They compare images of any type of submitted ballistic evidence, whether it's a gun, shell casings, bullets, round fires, and they analyze those, they put it in a national database, and they correlate the reviews that could be related to other offenses anywhere in the area or the region. For example, and this has happened to us, if sometimes we'll get a shots fired call at the middle of an intersection at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'll go there. There's nobody there. There's no damage. There's no suspects. There's no witnesses. But we'll find a couple shell casings laying in the street. So we'll collect those. We'll send them into NIBIN and E-Trace, and they'll analyze those. Sometimes you'll get a call back saying, hey, that round matches this shooting that took place in Price Hill. So then detectives work together. They get what we have, we get what they have, and they work together to solve the case. On the flip side, which has happened to us, we have arrested someone and taken an illegal gun off of them, sent the firearm to NIBIN, and got a call back about a month or 2 later saying that gun was used in a shooting in Price Hill. So then obviously Cincinnati detectives comes to us. So anytime you have a crime reduction plan in place, this is critical to having that in place, because it talks to everybody when we're talking about gun violence. Everybody's looking at the same thing when things are happening in different jurisdictions. Just some quick resolution for significant cases last year by CIS, because they've been busy. In 2022, a Mr. Brian Curry was arrested for the murder of Andre Denson on Mills Avenue. He was indicted on involuntary manslaughter, murder, felonious assault, legal possession of firearms. He entered into a plea agreement this year or last year in 2024, 2 years later, and he was sentenced to up to 21 and a half years in prison. Back in 2023, a Brandon Dotson was arrested for murder of a Douglas Palmer on 5100 block of Hunter Avenue. He was arrested within days of the offense. However, due to lack of witnesses and any witnesses that were on the scene that did not want to help out the police, there was nothing else we could do, so he was released. When he was released, was involved in another shooting in another neighborhood around Cincinnati. Our detective worked extensively with the prosecutor's office to continually working with them about our case. Finally, they had enough DNA and physical evidence to go ahead and charge Mr. Dotson, and he pled guilty to both of those shooting offenses, and he was set to 20 to 25 and a half years in prison. Some robberies here. Last year, around July and September, there was multiple armed robberies at our Speedway locations and other businesses by a suspect with the black and purple handgun. One of our detectives recognized a possible suspect as someone that was previously convicted of an armed robbery at a Speedway in Norwood several years ago, who just got out of prison. And after connecting the dots, they did find vehicle evidence of him, and along with our flock camera system that we have, they investigated that and located and found him as the primary suspect. Detective Garner was the lead investigator on this case. This guy's robberies frequently, they started out as his face was masked. He would go in, he would do the robbery, and he would leave. And then as more robberies occurred, he became more desperate. And then he wasn't concealing himself anymore. And then he was kidnapping people. And then he was pistol whipping people. And then it was getting extremely, extremely violent. So our Detective Garner, was the case officer on this. And she secured a 55-count indictment on him. I think a total of 25 robberies, I believe, throughout Hamilton County. So he's looking at a potential federal indictment. That case does remain active in Hamilton County Court. And then back in May of last year, we responded to an armed robbery at UDF. Detectives obtained video, other leads that linked them to similar other robberies in Green Township in Cincinnati. They identified as two suspects, a Desmond Vaughn and a Major McQueen, leading to their indictment on 13 felony counts of robbery, aggravated robbery, and weapons under disability. That still remains ongoing. Some burglaries and break-in and enterings. Last year, the Quick Pick, the Wood Bar, and the Maristop got burglarized. Detectives using fingerprint analysis, DNA, and video evidence identified a suspect as a Jeffrey Jeter. He also had broken into multiple businesses throughout Hamilton County as well. He was arrested, charged with three of them through Norwood, sentenced to 3 years in prison. And then one in May in 2024, another burglary occurred at Sunoco early in the morning, and somehow they pieced this together with a lawnmower theft from Walter Avenue. Detectives identified a Brian Hodge as the suspect through video evidence and neighborhood canvas. Hodge was indicted on B&E and theft charges. While he was out on bond, he was caught in the act of committing another B&E by Detective Murphy, and he was arrested, re-indicted, and pled guilty and received a 2-year prison sentence. So just some activity by our detectives here. You can see that they remain busy. Their cases assigned last year has increased up to 20%. They've closed cases by arrest has increased 56%. The minus 13 case closed, that could be anything really. When officers go make a report, they may not have all the elements of a crime, so they don't classify it as a report. They classify it as a generic general conditions. When that report gets investigated by the detectives, they take it, they look at it, they'll follow up with it to see if it meets the criteria of a crime or not. If it doesn't, then they close it out. Our felony arrests were up 40% last year. Felony charges remained the same. Misdemeanor arrests increased 88% through that unit, as well as the misdemeanor charges. And the majority of those increases we contribute directly to retail theft. They're investigating more than 50% of their cases as retail theft. So that's the large increase there. We had one administrative lieutenant. He's in charge of recruitment, hiring, field training, fleet management. He's got a lot on his shoulder. He stays very busy. Just some personnel recognition. Last year, Officer Jimmy Strunk, he was awarded the Police Officer of the Year through the Norwood Chamber of Commerce. Lieutenant Bud Rich, he retired after 28 years of service with us. It's going to make a huge dent in our department. And then Miss Monet Smith, she is my new sidekick, my new secretary. She replaced Kim Ford after Kim retired after 35 years of service here at Norwood. So Monet brings a lot of positive energy to my office, and she's been helping me out a lot. So she's a good addition. Real quick, we're going to try to go over the accountability section. That covers our minimum standards for bias-free policing, investigation, employee misconduct, vehicle pursuits, use of force, all the high liability incidences that we do. The Ohio Collaborative, real quick, this was created in 2015 through the state of Ohio. They never had any minimum standards before, so they created a 12-person panel of experts, community leaders throughout the state to establish Ohio's first law enforcement minimum standards. This is volunteer. We don't have to do this. We do it because I feel that it gives us some accountability. It gives us a baseline of where all of our policies and procedures and how we act should be. So anything, not that we do the bare minimum, but as long as we have minimum standards, we always aim to accelerate in those. So they also provide policies, and it's just not, when we submit policies for the state, it's just not someone looking at them from another side of the computer. They go through, they have their checks and balances and their protocols, and then they actually have an in-person review. They'll come down, they'll come in our department, they'll physically look at our reports, they'll look at our management systems, they'll physically pull an officer into a room and say, hey, tell me about this policy. And hopefully you want the officer to know what the policy is. So they do a lot of checks, in-person audit trails, and we're working real hard to do that. We always had these policies in play. These aren't nothing new to us, but we've now submitted them to the collaborative up in Ohio, and we're in a good state right now. Group 1, our use of force, recruitment, and hiring practices, those have been completed and certified. Group 2, community engagement, body-worn cameras, telecommunication training. Group 3's bias-free policing, misconduct, vehicle pursuits is done. We are currently in process of working on the Group 5 and the Group 6, which is the crisis intervention, positive, appropriate policing for positive youth interactions, responding to mass protests, demonstrations, and obviously agency wellness. They added the 2 groups, Group 7 and 8, which includes property and evidence and E-Trace and NIBIN, since that's kind of a big thing now with the ATF when it comes to gun violence. Use of forces, that's also another high liability area for us. So we do a use of force report, everything at balanced displacement and above. It's our policy that officers use only the reasonable amount of force necessary. And this is critical because a lot of people don't understand this. And it's not about Monday morning quarterbacking when you look at something on video and you're like, well, he shouldn't have done that. He should have done this. It's all about given the facts and the circumstances of the officer at the time of the situation to bring it under control. And that's what it goes by, nothing else. There are factors. We follow the Supreme Court decision. That's what every police department in the country follows. That's the baseline for the seriousness of the offense. Is there probable cause to make an arrest? Is there a physical threat to the officers or others? And was the suspect actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade by flight? As you can see, we've only had 8 use of forces last year. And that's out of almost 27,500 contacts that we have interacted with in the city in 1 year. So those numbers are phenomenal. They're good. You should be proud of those. I'm extremely proud of them. Last year, they were 6. And I told you that we would obviously want to use that as a benchmark. This year is 8. Those are still phenomenal numbers. That tells you that our guys are doing things right. They're de-escalating runs. They're de-escalating anybody that doesn't want to comply. They're doing the best that they possibly can. Tells you that we're not going hands-on first, that we're doing whatever we can do. So that's a big contribution to our training, the personalities of the officers out there and how they interact with our community. Out of those 8 use of forces, we break those down even further. 3 of those involved, we believe, were under the influence of drugs or alcohol. 1 was involved, was an emotionally disturbed person. And 4, we don't know. So they fit into a category. They weren't in the other 2. The demographics, 8 of those use of forces were for males, 4 were from male whites, 4 was from male blacks. No females. We break them down by age. This one's a little weird for some reason. It seems we had 3 use of forces from the age group of 40 to 49. Normally that's between 20 and 25, 29. Younger, the more you have. But all in all, 8 is still, like I said, it's a phenomenal number. It's something to be very proud of. Resulting in dispatch runs, 5 resulted in dispatch runs, 2 resulted from other initiated activity. 1 resulted from a traffic stop. Locations, 7 of those occurred on the street, none occurred in the police facility, and 1 occurred in a building. Last year, and just a reminder, we had 165 police officers in the nation that was killed in the line of duty, which is a 6% increase from the previous year. Those killed were 63 of those that was killed were from felonious incidents, gunfire, assaults, and vehicle assaults. Make no mistake, we're always going to make our officer safety the #1 priority. That's just a quick overview of the use of forces. It's got the dates, officer involved, the locations, if there's any injuries, the charges, whether before or after, and the type of force used. The only thing that I'm going to point out here is the type of force used. There was only 1 incident here where they used a baton. Everything else was hand control, balance displacement, and OC spray. So that also tells you that we're doing things right, we're being trained right, and we're not escalating the level of force if we don't have to. We have to do an annual pursuit report, and just a reminder what the definition of a pursuit is. A pursuit is an active attempt by an officer in an authorized emergency vehicle to apprehend a fleeing suspect who is actively attempting to elude the police. There is a misconception or a misunderstanding of what our policy is. We don't have a 0 pursuit policy. Our pursuit policy is restrictive, and it's based on what is happening at the time, if that officer or supervisor is going to allow someone to pursue or not. Our pursuit policy mirrors almost everyone in the counties. At one point in time, they had a countywide pursuit policy, everybody on the same page. And the reason for that is because if I have a different policy, Gulf Manor has a different policy. If they pursue a car into Norwood, we cannot help them if their pursuit does not fit our policy. So the majority of surrounding departments, Cincinnati, Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, the main ones that's more likely than not a pursuit's going to come through Norwood. We mirror their policies, so that way we're all on the same board. If we have a pursuit that goes into their jurisdiction, then they have the authorization to help us, and vice versa. Out of all the pursuits last year, we only had 4. We had 4 pursuits. We had almost 3,300 traffic stops. So that's also a phenomenal low number. That tells you that these guys know what their policy is, that they're making great decisions out there. They know when to pursue and when not to pursue. Out of those 4, 3 were within policy and 1 was not within policy, and we dealt with that immediately. So we believe that this low number of pursuits is a direct result of our training, our policy review, our roll call trainings on these. We break these down just like the use of forces, where they're initiated. Since there was only 4, I'll go through them real quick. Surface streets, no highway. And that one stood out for me too. Reason for the pursuit. So even though we had 4, 3 of them were for a criminal offense. 1 was for a traffic incident. I don't have those facts offhand, but that's probably the one that was without a policy. Reason for termination, 2 supervisors terminated, 2 suspects collided. That's how the pursuit stopped. 2 involved in an accident. There was no accident by any police officers involved in that. So we understand that this is inherently dangerous aspects of our work. We do understand this, and we do make every attempt to limit this risk, not only to ourselves, but to the public. So out of those 4, 1 was successful, 3 was unsuccessful. So again, Norwood has a population of 19 plus, seems like it's growing every day. We have a much larger daytime population. We have major interstate, major state routes where we're located. We have 3,300 traffic stops a year. To break that down in perspective, that equals to about 9 traffic stops a day. So some days you're going to have more, some days you're going to have less, but that shows you we stay pretty active in what we do. And so with 9 traffic stops a day and all the volume of calls, we stay busy constantly. So these are great numbers. It tells you and it tells me that these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. When we talk about our annual bias-based policing report, this is a report that has to be sent to me every year, and it lists traffic stops by race and gender. It lists citizens' complaints. It lists any citizens' complaints with resolutions and suggestions, any training needs, any policy changes. As you can see by that traffic stop data, obviously more males than females were stopped. And by race, right around black and white is almost 50%, 50-50. We still have a lot of unknowns in that category, 96. Some of that is some people don't know the race. Some people's not going to ask them for the race when they come back and they do the report. That's understandable. Our record management system does not distinguish Hispanic as an ethnicity. It distinguishes as a race, so it creates another category for that, which kind of skews some of those numbers. But moving on, we've had no citizens' complaints last year for officers for racial profiling, so that's another outstanding caveat there. We're not going to need to conduct any more training regarding any bias-based policing. We did that training last year. As we move forward, all the officers know that they need to record accurate race data, gender identifiers when they do these reports after any contact is made. We believe that the data for the bias-based policing, that it appears to be a fair representation of the population that travels through our streets. There's no recommended policy changes at this time. Regular citizens' complaints. We've only had 5 last year. And as you can see, the year before we had 10. So that's a number that's on the decline. And that tells you that things are doing good. 2 were behavior. People maybe thought the officer was disrespectful or rude, so that was looked into. A noise run, which really wasn't us. It was a ordinance. They didn't like the ordinance time. Told them we couldn't do nothing about someone trying to fix their house up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But then there was a traffic stop, which led to an arrest, and then there was a gun run. So we went from 10 complaints 2 years ago to 5 complaints last year. So it tells you that we're on the right track. Our drug unit, again, 1 sergeant, 2 agents, 1 assigned to the DEA. They focus on street-level drug dealers and drug complaints. We have a strong partnership with Cincinnati District 2 Violent Crime Section. We collaborate with these agencies. It gives us the ability to use additional manpower, additional equipment. As you can see, just a quick snippet of the drugs that our task force has confiscated. Marijuana's down, most likely because of the new law. Common sense. Heroin's pretty much the same as it was before. As you can see, there's a huge spike in the methamphetamine, and then there's a huge spike in the crack cocaine. I believe those grams, this is in grams, so 3,400 grams, maybe 7 pounds of meth, something like that. They seized 12 firearms, $37,000 in drug money. Auxiliary police statistics, I don't have the numbers, so I'll try to remember them, but every category in parking enforcement is up, and it's up a lot. Last year, we ended with a total of 834 traffic citations strictly for the auxiliary program. This year, it's 1,600, almost 1,700. So Joe Faust has increased this about 101% parking enforcement. And I say Joe Faust because it's the Joe Faust statistics. But as you can see, the top 3, the expired plates, violation of posted signs, the 72-hour parking, and then it goes from people parking in the wrong direction, parking on sidewalks. And he towed 66 cars last year. Community engagement, everyone knows about the NPA. They're the masterminds behind all of our fundraisers, what we do with the community engagement and how we collaborate with our community engagement team. They donated more than about $28,000 last year to community events and community organizations around Norwood. These are our partnerships that we typically partner with all the time. Norwood Together, Norwood City School District, Gym of the Highlands. See the picture with the AEDs. The Cincinnati Rotary Club, their goal several years ago was to put an AED in every police car in Hamilton County. Normally when there's a scene or an emergency, the police is there first. So why not have some type of life-saving device within that police car? We got issued 3 of those, and since then we have 4 more. So we have 7 AEDs that's available in our cars if we need them. One thing I want to highlight real quick here, and I think it's very important, is Women Helping Women and DIVERT. DIVERT, those that don't know, Domestic Violence Enhanced Response Team. We've been collaborating with Women Helping Women for several years. And what they do is, so they have a subset of Women Helping Women, which is DIVERT. It's a Domestic Violence Enhanced Response Team. So they are an advocate-initiated response who responds upon our request 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they come out on scene at the time of the 911 call to deal and collaborate with us and help survivors of domestic violence. In that moment of danger, trauma is going on, they are a trained advocate to come and provide real-time resources right then and there. They started this program in 2018 with CPD as a pilot program. We were the very next agency to hop on board. So we came upon in 2019, and we've been using them ever since, and they're a great organization, great people to work with. Now they're up to 33 agencies throughout the state. I believe it's a clear collaboration that spotlights kind of a cultural shift within law enforcement, and actually having advocates and trained individuals alongside us when we go to these runs, especially when it involves domestic violence. And as you can see, so what happens is we get a domestic violence call, we go on scene, we determine if we have a true offense or not, and we get on the radio and we say, can you have DIVERT respond? DIVERT has a radio, and they will respond back, yes, I'll be there in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Anytime, day or night, they come on scene. They meet the officers there. They can collaborate together. They provide real-time on-scene tangible support for domestic violence survivors. They can provide immediate safety planning, connections to shelters, hotels. They can provide food, financial assistance, court assistance, helping them with victim notifications. If we make an arrest, they'll know when the abuser gets released from jail and therapy. They come out monthly to our roll calls, and they'll sit in our roll call. If they have any additional information to provide, they'll provide it. We talk, we collaborate, we talk about this. But the main positive stuff with them is because of them, we see a decrease in re-victimization. There was a time where we was always going to the same homes over and over and over and over again. 1 week we'd arrest one party, 2 days later we'd arrest another one, and then the third day we'd end up arresting both of them. We don't see that anymore. So, and I think it's a big factor because of this, because now you have somebody on scene. We can provide those resources to them, but when you have someone there that they can build an additional rapport with and feel probably safer with, then things tend to happen a lot quicker. So they're great. We're going to continue using them, and as you can see, that's dropped our domestic violence down about 27.5%. If I was to go back another year in 2022, our domestic violence runs would probably be in the 80s. So it's a constant decrease. Community partners, the 3 photos on the left is our community engagement team. They're always at Norwood View doing the adopted class, mentoring the same class over and over again. And it's just not the people in uniform that go. We have detectives, non-sworn individuals go, because we want individuals to see more than just someone in uniform. how a police department is run and what's really happening behind the scenes. Everybody sees us in uniform. No one really sees what's happening behind the scenes, how cases are being done and paperwork. And so they love it. They love it when the canine's out there. The picture on the right, this is a physics class, and they wanted Officer Town to teach them some physics. He felt that he wasn't educated enough to do that. So he called State Patrol, and they came in and did a whole day, 2-day presentation of accident crash reconstruction. And that includes some math that I don't even know how to spell. So it talks about speed, distance, just everything. It's a very niche skill that they have. This is every Christmas, every Christmas Eve, every Christmas Day, or every Christmas, our guys get together. The NPA provides toys and presents for the community. And these guys go out and kind of make it a fun event for the kids. Stop by and give them photo ops and some goodies for Christmas. Moving on. So our outlook, we're going to continue our justified use of force training simulators. That goes over officers don't shoot scenarios. It improves the officer's speed, the quality of decision making. Last year we did the Street Smart virtual reality simulator, which is a very good training. So we're going to keep doing that every year. We're going to get more officers on bike training so they can get on some bikes. We like officers being on bikes, out of the cars, in the community, people seeing them more. Because of the high number of crashes, we are going to start hitting the pavement pretty hard May 1st, and we're going to try to get those crashes down. So we are going to focus on aggressive driving, speed enforcement, aggressive driving, and distracted driving. So don't get caught talking on your phone while you're driving down Montgomery Road. We have people that are attached to the OVI monthly Hamilton County OVI task force. They go monthly all around different communities in Hamilton County and try to dig up OVIs. The State Patrol, they normally do 1 checkpoint with us per year. We're going to have them do 2 this year. But I have my day shift lieutenant and night shift lieutenant that's given me their operational plan for the speed enforcement. And hopefully once I approve that, we can start doing that on May 1st. More outlook, we are still 2 officers below complement. I'd like to get another speed camera. That's on Smith Road. Obviously, that's on a road that has a high crash corridor. I come in that way every morning for work. I see the sign. I see once it starts blinking, cars in front of me start slamming on the brakes. So I know it works. So a couple more of those would be good. We'd like to purchase another e-bike. We have 2 of those. You can get around the town pretty quick on those. We have to replace all of our mobile data computers in our cruisers. That's already been budgeted. That should be taking place next week. That's a Hamilton County thing. They're going out with the old and with the new. Every department has to do that. We have to get rid of our OVI and toxilizer at our police station. That's the Department of Ohio. That's the Department of Board of Health. They are out with the old and with the new. Every agency has to buy a new one. And obviously, you guys know the issues with our police cars. That's still in our capital planning. Those 6 cars we talked about last time I was up here, they are at the outfitters now. They are getting upfitted, and we should see those in May. So it took the owner of Valerie to get him arrested for us to move over to L&W. We have a pole barn now down at Public Works. That's our new large evidence facility. Anytime we get a vehicle that we need to hold for evidence, whether it's a shooting, crime scene, whatnot, we now have a very secure place to keep those. And just a quick summary of what I went over. We were 2 officers below complement. We should be given a test here shortly. Violent crime is down. Nonviolent crime is down. Crashes are up. Retail thefts are up. CIS is experiencing a dramatic increase in caseload due to retail theft. We're going to continue working on that Ohio Collaborative. Our use of forces are down, which is a great number. Our pursuits are in single digits, which is outstanding. We have 5 citizens complaints, which is outstanding. 0 racial profiling complaints. And starting May 1st, we're gonna do some aggressive traffic safety. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Yes,
Braden.
sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate that. A lot of information in there. Great job. Seems like you guys are really doing good work. What can you tell us about an incident happened, or if you can inform us about anything that happened? Was it Easter evening, Lower Millcrest? Can you tell us anything about that, or is that under investigation?
I really don't know what happened. I know that there was a gathering down there. All hell broke loose. There was a fight. There was guns pulled. People were detained. I don't have any. Do you know anything about it? I don't have all the facts.
Okay.
I don't know what started it, where it ended. I know it started from Lower Millcrest, kind of worked its way down to Webster Avenue.
Again, I appreciate all the information and all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to requests to address council. We have several. There are 3 that are pertaining to agenda items. Those are Tom Cantwell, Amber Ballard, and Alice Rarica. Just checking to see, did you want to address council with all of the other requests, or since it is an agenda item, would you like to speak before that item is considered on the agenda? All right. So then moving on to the first, this was submitted online, and that is Melinda Smith. Oh, that is fine. Yes. All right. The next request to address council is Dana Bolt.
Thank you. Do I have to say where I live?
Oh, yeah, sorry. State your name and your address. And then
Dana
you have 5
Boll.
minutes.
3947 Ellesmere Avenue. Tonight, I see there is a resolution for an Arbor Day celebration. And having supported these events in the past, I understand that Arbor Day has its purpose and has been useful. I'm agnostic about Arbor Day and have said so to some of you. My focus is elsewhere. However, trees need more than hugs. They need dollars and legislation. Council should play the role it's elected to do. What I am here to support, while expressing a little disappointment in this council, is the need to fund a line item for a city arborist, at least 16 hours per week. I have spoken to some of you before, including the safety service director privately. I see everything else getting support. If you do not see our stately trees as infrastructure needing maintenance, like trees, fire trucks, and this room, then I will put you on the defensive. I will not support you. I know this is a different tone for you guys. Even the financially strapped Williams administration provided an arborist 1 day a week. Gregor Roos had a community planning degree, was a registered landscape architect, and was a certified arborist. So he was a very good fit for us, but with no time to do what he was truly able. Unfortunately, chain of command was an issue with that position, and various citizens and groups had access to him. His door was covered with Post-it notes. The position itself got a black eye. The role needs protections to be productive and reverse our rapidly declining tree canopy. The arborist needs to be able to respond to reports, to see, click, fix, and to proactively preserve assets So we are not replacing them, which in truth, we really can't do as it takes decades to produce them. Many of our trees can be saved with professional care. Funding an arborist is a cost-effective way to slow and correct ongoing tree loss until our resources improve. Please, council members, do not pass another budget without funding an arborist. It's been 5 years.
Thank you. And the next request to address council is Ebony J.
Hello, I'm Ebony J from Ebony J Media Learning Center. We're here in Cincinnati, right down here on Mentor Avenue. It's a youth center where we service youth ages 14 to 22. We help them learn media. I've been a media personality with Radio 1 Cincinnati for over 10 years. And so my passion is to help the youth. Of course, we know they're all in media. That's what they love. But we give them the foundation to help them build their confidence in media, as well as just helping them understand how to really communicate what they're feeling. And it's helping them with their mental health as well. So we teach podcasting, DJing, and recording. We've been here for about 2 years now. So I just wanted to come. It's my first time here. I've been working with Bishop James on just finding ways to just partner and with other organizations here in Norwood. Every summer we get a group of 20 kids, and this year we have over 50 kids on our waiting list. But we just been trying to find the funding to keep the support of the program going. So I just wanted to come introduce myself and to see if what resources that you all possibly may have. I'll be here after the meeting if there anybody would like to meet.
Thank you. The next request to address council is Robert Boom Boom James.
Hello, Council. How you doing? Robert Boom Boom James, the owner of Boom Fitness Center and Boom Worldwide down on 3850 Montgomery Road. I appreciate seeing all everybody here. Hey, glad to see my father here, Bishop Sonny James. Guys, again, we're doing a lot of things great in the city. Obviously, I won the Gym of the Highlands Award a couple years ago. I really appreciate being nominated. I really appreciate that. We're just trying to do great things. You know, we've had 11 world champs in boxing, 2 world champs in MMA, 111 amateur champs. And so we're looking to throw a major event called the Boom Belt Battle 15 coming up as of January. We are now the #1 boxing promotion in the nation, thanks to my team here in the back. Did I say hi? Miss Tiffany Williams, my right-hand person, general manager of my gym, CFO, Ms. Lena, head of media, and then Ms. Chris, she's the one that commentates all our pay-per-view events, and then Harrison, the 3-time state champion and the 6th belt holder now. So I appreciate the support, as well as I appreciate your guys's. We're looking to host an event in Norwood. I do want to address the fact that obviously I've been all around the world. Everyone knows I've won my titles. Obviously, I won nationals multiple times when I was at Norwood High School. And you know, I really appreciate everybody continue to show some love and support. We're looking to throw a show here. I've done it all across the nation. Our last event, Boom Belt Battle 14, was right there in Trotwood and out there in Dayton. But I'm tired of having to take my business elsewhere. I want it to be here in Norwood. And so I just look forward, and I want to thank you guys in advance for supporting all the events we're having. Hopefully we can get it in either Norwood High School, Shea Stadium. I think maybe Centos is still in Norwood. I'm not sure if that's part of Norwood or not. Well, then I want to stay in Norwood. So if we can get it in the high school or Shea Stadium, then wherever it is supporting this community, I would love to do that, but it has not happened yet. So any support, any suggestions you guys have for us to where we can get it right here and give out, like last time we've given out 26 belts one show, 26 another show. I mean, like I said, thankfully, you know, all praise to God. I'm very humble when I say that we have become #1 in the nation. We've now surpassed even the national championship. And so we've done a lot of hard work. I've owned Boom for, as of my birthday, May 14th, it'll be 18 years. And so I'm a young guy, only 35 and about to be 36. And I really just support all the ones who support me, and I really want to support Norwood, and anything you guys have to support that, Follow us at Boom Worldwide on all platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and everything else. And we really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. The next request to address council is Bishop Sonny James.
Good evening. Wow. He shows that there might be a nice version of me. That's awesome. I stand before you all tonight. First and foremost, the Bible tells us to give honor to whom honor is due. I stood before you all a couple of weeks ago and told you that a network of my peers were looking into some of the policing matters, namely the two African-American girls that died at the end of one of the chases right here in Norwood. But I was very proud to announce that we will not be filing a lawsuit against our police department. And I say that with great pride. And to see our chief stand before the residents with great transparency, I honor that. And I really warm my heart to see that. Because the incident that he's talking about that just happened a few days ago where the African-American man was, he died in transport to medical facility, I received 58 phone calls on that saying, Bishop, what are you going to do? And I'm here to tell you tonight that I'm so glad that I'm not going to do anything, nor am I asking my peers to do anything, simply because policing is a very difficult and complicated job. And so we have to honor them in the process of doing their job. Now, most of you are, well, let me quick hit, all of you know, if there is something to challenge, I don't look to my left, I don't look to my right, I make that challenge unapologetically. But I want to give honor where honor is due and to applaud our chief for bringing on a different nature officer that really does reflect a diverse thinking crew of officers. So even though that they're not here. Then also I told you all last time that there are several lawsuits still being filed in Norwood. We, of course, have two that we are bringing forth. One against a major retailer that we all know by name very well. And another one is a rather large business. People are calling and asking for us to inquire and look in. Just because I initiate looking in does not mean I'm against these folks. It does not mean at the end of the day we're going to file a $100 million lawsuit against all of them. But I am here to tell you today that I am proud of the progress that we are making. Although we still have some hills to climb, I don't hide behind anything or anybody. I am now well out front to let you all know, as you all already know, I'm not asking for permission. If there's something that we need to do different, let's just do it together. And we've made great strides. And on May the 18th, many of you have my flyer. Now, this is just a quick flyer, but I also want to thank my awesome son, who's not just talented in boxing, which he was trained by his father. Thank you very much. But he helped put this together. And on May 18th, some of everybody and who's anybody in the state or local, or if they think there's somebody, are coming together. And the whole focus is on our youth. The whole focus is creating opportunities for young people to do something different. Even for organizations like Ebony J and Boom Worldwide. I'm saying we need to declare an emergency on funds to make sure that we have things available so that when these, and I don't say it apologetically, when these minority businesses come forward, we have money for everything that we want to have money for. And now I'm asking or saying that we need to find resources to help keep these individuals motivated by staying in business so that they can continue to motivate the next generation. I want to just play this real quick for you. I told you all I was going after $1 million donors. And it's so difficult sometimes to believe the report until you see it. So just the other day, our first $1 million donor hired more of the youth to work for him. And at the end of it,
you got to do something with that head. The head that represents you, man. Think about you marketing yourself. Unless you're selling hats and helmets. I don't know, you know, with it. You gotta go on that thing. Why you come out with that? You might have seen that cute little girl. You go out there like that. All right, so you got a promising future here. One day we're gonna hear from this man. He's gonna be a future leader of Black America. Nehemiah gonna bring us to the promised land.
And at the end of that, you don't see it here, but you'll see it on our event. This man told Nehemiah he made his first $1 million at the age of 33. He's now in his 50s. And so he's been very, 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 very successful. And so I'm partnering with individuals that can actually help to fund wonderful businesses that need our attention. I'm asking you all to prioritize Sunday, May the 18th from 2:30 to 5:30 p.m. And I want to thank those that are on the board, our educational board, our Department of Education, who approved us to be able to use the facility that we'll be using. And I need your support. Not only do I need the support, but all of the businesses that we're bringing together need your support. I thank you for your time today, May 18th, and we're going to advertise it all over the community, and we just need all of Norwood to come out. We haven't had one bad incident in any of our events, and we won't start now. There'll be plenty of dignitaries, but the question is, will you be there? I need your support May 18th, and let's show these youth how important their lives are. The end goal is that we'll have to partner 1 year with Paycor and meet in the bingo stadium, because my goal is to gather a spot for everyone who's interested in youth. God bless you for the time. I didn't see the bishop clock today, so I had no idea when the time was up. God bless you all. Reach me at bishopsjames12@gmail.com or call me at 513-487-8843. Parents, if your children are acting unruly, get them to us. We can change their life. God bless you.
Thank you. Moving on to reports of standing committees of council. We have the Finance, Budget, Audit, and Claims Committee from March 25th, 2025.
Thank you. To the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio, we, your Committee of Finance, Budget, Audit, and Claims, to whom was referred reports on accounting methods, general updates on Auditor's Office, and bank reconciliations and claims, beg leave to submit the following report. We discussed updates on the auditor's methods of accounting and the current bank reconciliation process, and had Tim Wagers and Ken Miracle speak about the city's financial outlook. We also discussed changing the chairperson and how to handle claims in the future relating to damages caused by potholes and other accidents in the city. Respectfully submitted, Mrs. Emily Franzen, Mr. Jeff Girton, Mr. John Moore, and Mr. John Braden.
Mrs. Bowling.
I move we accept the committee report.
Motion by Mrs. Bowling to accept the committee report. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce? I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to third readings of ordinances and resolutions. The first is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Factory 52 LLC regarding 14,700 square feet of ground floor commercial space at 4580 Bicycle Boulevard and declaring an emergency. And we do have 3 requests to address council on this item. So we will start. The first is Tom Cantwell. If you can state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address council.
Good evening, council. My name is Tom Cantwell. I live over on 2032 Maple Avenue. So I know that none of these particular ordinances deal with a property that's being put in at the corner of Maple and Montgomery, but since we're talking about POK, all these things are related. So I wanted to address 2 narratives that I continue to hear about this development. The one narrative I hear is that Norwood needs affordable housing. So no metrics are given on this. Just looking at some research that I could find online, HUD data, Zillow, what I was able to find was Norwood has roughly 8,500 dwelling units. 3,300 are around around 1,500 per month for rent or mortgage. So that puts us at around 35 to 40% affordable based on HUD's data, if you're taking at 80% AMI for this area. So HUD recommends 20%. So we're already 35 to 40%. So, and now we're saying we need more affordable housing. I don't know where these numbers are coming from. We keep saying these things, but nobody gives us any data. It's just anecdotal stories about people knowing somebody who wants to live somewhere. And that we can't make these long-term decisions just based on stories when we see that we're well above HUD's recommended number already. The other narrative I keep hearing is, well, it's private property. We can't do anything about it. I love property rights. I think most of us do. But there's a lot of public money involved in this. And so once we involve public money, I think we have a right to say something. I think tonight, what we're voting on, what you all are voting on, these CRA ordinances, can have an effect on what PLK will ultimately put in there. I think all these things are tied together. The city has many tools that it can use to tell them no. We just don't want to use them. A lot of tonight's agenda is devoted to PLK. It seems most of the business done by the city at this point places many of this developer's interests above the interests of your constituents. I think the mayor said on the meeting on March 25th that all developments are good and that a rising tide lifts all ships. Affordable housing is not a rising tide here. You all need to listen to the community because I live over there and we don't want this. And there's many people who don't want that and we will leave. We can do this. So we're not happy with this direction. And I can tell you right now, I mean, the school board's going to speak directly about what they're dealing with right now. We're not cool with that either. There's a lot of people who are not happy with this. And we have a coalition that is building right now of many backgrounds. There's many different walks of life and it is forming. And we want the city to stop bending the knee to PLK, right? Build public trust with us. Listen to us. So we're your constituents and we want to be listened to. So I can't stay to hear how you all vote, but I do hope that you vote no. We're very concerned with the direction that things are going right now. Thank you.
Thank you. The next request to address council is Amber Ballard.
Good evening. My name is Amber Ballard. I reside at 2337 Harper Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the school board and also for myself. In short, but this will be long, for-profit entities should be held financially accountable for their fair share, especially when they want to integrate into our community in a positive manner. These deals have to benefit the community as a whole, not only the investment development firms that are making these deals. They will not be lowering their rental or leasing costs to the tenants or passing these savings along to the people paying the bills each month. This will not match the abatement savings being offered up on a silver platter by this city. Federal and state cuts are impacting our school district at exorbitant speeds. The more that we ask from this community to take on the financial burden is even furthered by the loss of this funding at the state and federal levels. This moves all of the financial burden back onto our taxpayers, and we pay enough. Everybody here works hard, we pay into our taxes, and we expect to see something for the money that we're putting forward. We aim, as a school board, to be good stewards to our taxpayers, and we all serve the same constituents. Norwood has more exempted properties for economic development than any other district already in Hamilton County, even before the city's changes in their ordinances. Norwood City Schools loses between $2.6 million and $3 million annually in abated tax revenues. This is after we subtract payment in lieu of tax revenue paid directly to the district for commercial agreements. Despite the fact that Norwood is only 3 square miles, our valuation makes up 2.1% of the total Hamilton County valuations. 42.7% of Hamilton County Chapter 725 urban renewal abatements are in Norwood. 3.43 of all Hamilton County CRAs are in Norwood. In total, Norwood has 2.6 of all county-wide abatements, a disproportionate share of abatements for such a small size. Not to mention, 2% of the Hamilton County TIFs are in Norwood, and 17.68 of all other Hamilton County abatements are here in Norwood. With these numbers, it appears to me that the rest of the county manages to make progressive deals for their communities without selling the farm. It feels that Norwood just offered PLK the full sticker price on a car, and we paid it. There was no negotiation. There was nothing. We offered it up to them. And it's simply too much abated property overall. The numbers don't match the size of our city for us to have that level of volume. These are for-profit, large-scale commercial property owners. They should be paying their fair share of taxes. These facts will only get worse if the city is set to change these ordinances, allowing very little accountability to the constituents of Norwood if they move forward with these apartment complexes. I am all for supporting new development and community reinvestment that will benefit our city, but giving away the portions of tax dollars that should be going to our schools is not the way to make a positive or sustainable impact. Respectfully, I ask that you take this back to the drawing board and demand accountability from our developers and business partners as the taxpayers demand of its local leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request to address council is Alice Rarica.
Alice Rarica, 4240 Forest Avenue. I'm keeping mine short and sweet because the others were kind of long. No, really, because I want to keep it short and sweet. I really appreciated Councilmember Girton's comments that CRAs are great. We need them. They help our city develop, but they weren't created to take advantage of us. And I urge you to either table or vote no on these CRA agreements for that reason. We should be a city run by our residents and our elected officials, not by a development company. Us. The end.
Thank you. So moving on to the agenda was the ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Factory 52 LLC regarding 14,700 square feet of ground floor commercial space at 4580 Bicycle Boulevard and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Hoover.
I move that we table this until a time to be determined, undetermined,
To a time uncertain.
uncertain. Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Bowling.
I second that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover, seconded by Mrs. Bowling, is to table this ordinance to a time uncertain. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
No.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
With a vote of 6-1, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Factory 52 LLC regarding construction of a 100 to 125 room hotel at 4580 Bicycle Boulevard and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Hoover.
I make a motion that we have the third reading.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to have the third reading of the ordinance. Is there a second? Mrs. Bowling.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Bowling. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I'll vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have the third reading of the ordinance.
Ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a community reinvestment area agreement with Factory 52 LLC regarding construction of a 100 to 125 room hotel at 4580 Bicycle Boulevard and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoover.
I move we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to pass the ordinance. Is there a second? Mrs. Franzen.
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Franzen. Any discussion? Mr. Moore.
Discussion on passage?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so the reason that I voted no a second ago is because I wanted to just go ahead and tackle both of these straight on. Having not been on council at the time that this started, with all these CRAs and the changing of the ordinances last August, updated in September, updated in December, I've had a lot of time to try to piece together basically how, what I think happened, for lack of a better term, my understanding of, kind of what the city administration did, what the council did, what the school district did. I think sort of everybody involved has a reason to kind of be frustrated with the other party or other parties. And, I certainly, in looking back, wish some different things happened with the administration, the council, and with the school board. But I think fundamentally that, I think any deal that the community makes with a developer should be everybody on board, excited, et cetera, about those particular developments. And I think it's pretty clear to me that the district leaders within the school feel like that the game was changed on them midstream. Again, I think there's a lot of dynamics at play here. And I think that to vote no, as they're asking, could actually change things in a way that might be like less beneficial than they would be if we just straight passed this. But I think fundamentally, I want to be a good ally of the school district, because I think in the sense that we have to do the best thing for the collective Norwood. And I think for me, I would like to see something like this sort of go back to the table where the district, the city administration and developer can hash out something that, even if it ends up back at the same number, something that the district feels like they had more of a say and more involvement in the process. So I'm personally not interested in passage, but rather sending it back to be reworked with the relevant parties. And that is the same sentiment that I share about the one that was just tabled, which is why, I voted as I did in that moment too. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Hoover.
I'm wondering if it might be helpful if, I think I saw Mr. Woodside here hiding. Would you be willing to come up and talk about the impact of this with the schools?
And Mr. Woodside, just to clarify, the ordinance that they're currently considering is the one regarding the CRA for the 100 to 125 room hotel.
Yeah, so that would be a 75% exemption. So the incremental value of the improvements to that property, the hotel certainly would be the vast majority of that. If not all of it would be exempted from real property tax, or 75% of the value would be exempt from real property tax for 15 years. So basically, the schools would receive for those 15 years 25% of what they would have otherwise received, as would the other overlaying tax districts.
Mrs. Bowen.
And just to clarify, the point of difference between the ordinance that was just tabled and this ordinance is that the original one was for residential property, which would have been 100% abatement, and this is for commercial, which is 74%.
Well, the first ordinance was for a portion of the overall development, which was basically, just call it retail. It says commercial here, but it's retail. And there's been obviously some legal uncertainty about the efficacy of passing that or approving that CRA. So I believe that's why that's generally tabled. But to my knowledge, there's no legal, uncertainty with respect to the CRA that's been proposed for the hotel. That's a 100% commercial. The city does have the ability to grant that 75% exemption without school approval under the current statute.
Mr. President.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Woodside, now this parcel that we're talking about where the hotel is planned to go is within the original TIF. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so what would be the effect, because there's an agreement with the school district about for that TIF from however many years ago. What is the effect on a building within the terms of that TIF without a CRA? Do you know off the top of your head?
I'll just talk and you let me know if I've answered your question. Okay. So basically this is within that original TIF. The CRA does, let's say, have priority over the TIF. So recall with the TIF, you basically exempt the property, then you make payments in lieu of tax for the value, the tax payments that would have been paid. Those payments in lieu of tax would now be exempted under the CRA exemption. The school agreement does still exist with respect to the overall, you'd call it phase one. I don't have the exact terms, but basically there was an agreement with respect to different exemptions that would take place for certain periods. After that, the schools would then start being reimbursed or receive partial payments during the various times. There were, I think, 5 different CRAs that were approved currently that are within that TIF area. This is just outside of that. And again, it is subject to a TIF overall. Those payments and what those TIF payments, the amounts of those TIF payments will vary over time based on again, what the percentage of those various CRAs are that overlie that TIF. And some of those TIF payments, again, for a portion of them are also being used to repay debt that was issued by the Port Authority to pay for some public infrastructure.
Mr. President.
Mr. Moore?
Really what I'm getting at, do you remember what the payments in lieu of taxes under that TIF?
Yeah.
Do you remember or do you know off the top of your head how that balances out with what the tax payments would be without a TIF? Is it a certain percentage or is the full amount the school district would have been entitled to? Do you remember from that original agreement?
I don't believe they were entitled to all the TIF payments. I believe, though, after particular periods when CRAs wore off, the excess was going to go to the school. I just don't recall exactly right now what that percentage was.
All right. I'm just trying to figure out whether it's this as a practical, how much of a difference this CRA as a practical matter makes in the amount the school board would be entitled to under the TIF versus under this for the first 15 years. And I don't know. So when those arrangements were basically entered into originally, it was really based on the expected tax value of the portion of the project constituting phase one. So I don't recall what those numbers look like, but the TIF from this was basically, was unencumbered, let's say, by either those initial bonds or by an arrangement with the school district. So this, like I said, this is, there's not a hotel that was necessarily part of that original plan, but the effect will be that money, whether it was TIF payments or whether it was tax payments, 75% of that will be exempted for 15 years based on this CRA with respect to that hotel, to the hotel we're talking about here. So whatever the TIF would have been available for, whether it was the schools, pay the bonds, to go back to the city for public infrastructure improvements, that will be exempted for that period. That
answers. All right.
Yeah, sorry, that was unclear.
Any further questions for Mr. Woodside or general discussion? All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
The motion on the floor by Mrs. Hoover, seconded by Mrs. Franzen, is to pass the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
No.
Mr. Girton?
No.
Mr. Braden?
No.
With the emergency clause being in there, they do need 5 to pass, correct? So that motion fails. Moving on to the next ordinance. This is an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a tax increment financing agreement with Factory 52 LLC. authorizing all other documents and instruments necessary to implement the terms of such agreement, and authorizing and approving related matters. Mr. Garten.
Make a motion to have a third reading of the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Garten to have the third reading of the ordinance. Is there a second? Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Mrs. Hoover.
Sorry, I'm scrolling to get to the cover page. Could someone, this would also be helpful for folks at home, I think, come up and explain this TIF ordinance? I don't know if that would be, I thought I saw Catherine here or,
I think it's 39 in the PDF.
I'm sorry, 49?
39.
39, thank you.
Okay, so this is basically what it's going to do. The net effect is basically the TIF revenue is going to be used, the net TIF revenue, I'll go into that a little further, is going to be used to reimburse the developer for public infrastructure costs. So there's quite a few things that fall into public infrastructure. The vast majority, well, not the vast majority, a big piece of that is a parking garage that's going to be built here. So if you recall in the past, what is sometimes done, you issue debt, let's say, or you have some kind of other obligation that's repaid with your TIF revenues. That is basically being done here, but instead of issuing bonds that are repaid with your TIF, you are basically having the developer pay for all that infrastructure. To the extent these revenues, these TIF revenues are generated and available in the future, they'll be used to repay them for those costs. So this is a little bit different because there's two TIFs. There's the one we talked about before, which is, let's call it the phase one TIF. Those monies will be generated. They'll be, one, used to pay debt that was previously issued to pay for the cost of public infrastructure. That debt was issued by the port. So the city each year will send a portion of those TIF revenues to repay that debt. There's also an arrangement with the schools. Next, you'll have the money, whatever the requirement is under the existing school district compensation payment with respect to phase one, will go to the schools. To the extent there's money left over from that, after those two items, it can then be used to repay the developer for cost of public infrastructure. Now, there's a second TIF that is, let's call it a southern portion. The multicolor site is what people usually refer to it. That has its own TIF that has been established over that property, as well as some other property that is to the west of the PLK, Factory 52 development. So the area that is west of the Factory 52 development, that is not going to be encumbered by this agreement. That is still separate. That, you know, to the extent there is incremental tax value, and incremental tax value generates TIF revenue, that's still unencumbered. It's available to the city to use for public infrastructure as it so chooses in the future. The portion of the multicolor site, or the portion of the TIF that is overlaying the former multicolor site, that, as with the net TIF revenues that I was describing from the phase one TIF, those TIF revenues will also be available to pay the developer back for the cost of the public infrastructure. So, you know, I'll just with the schools here, as I said before, on the TIF, on the phase one TIF, to the extent they're obligated to do so, the city will use the net TIF revenues to pay the schools before anything goes to the developer. With respect to the, let's call it the phase two TIF, even though it covers more than phase two of this development, the schools are made whole. That TIF was entered into without their approval, but it was done in such a way that they'll be paid all the money that they would otherwise have received from the tax payments with respect to that TIF revenue. That's the gist of it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Moore?
So just to be clear, if
Yeah.
council passes this,
Yes.
it basically diverts money from the TIF we already have on multicolor to cover infrastructure costs within the Factory 50, within the multicolor development that's going to go on. And it will not take any monies away from the school. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. Yes, this agreement will not divert. The schools will come first as far as the existing agreement that they have for the phase one TIF. And then, yes, they're made whole for phase two, plus some.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Sorry, through the chair. So is it effectively allowing for like an interplay between the two TIF funds? Is that a
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when phase one was kind of put together, let's call it, and the bonds were issued, the TIFs were implemented and all that, that really was done, in a pretty, there was lots going on there, let's just say. There were a bunch of different elements of the site. There was a CRA, 5 CRAs, there was the TIF, that was sort of done, agreements were made, that's sort of separate. Then later, we established this other, the city, not we, the city established the other TIF. That really was not part of really a really detailed plan. It was put in place basically because, the benefit of putting a TIF, the earlier you put it on, you capture incremental value, incremental taxes. So that was put there without a very clear plan of what was going to be established either by PLK or the other surrounding properties. So it does have interplay between those two things. Some of that infrastructure, I'm sure, will basically benefit phase one and phase two there over at that intersection. But yeah, they were just established in different ways. Again, the first phase one TIF was established with school agreements. The second one, because it was a 30-year TIF, you basically can't go it alone unless you make the schools whole. So the schools are made whole under that legislation. Sure.
Any further questions or discussion? Motion on the floor by Mr. Garten, seconded by Mrs. Hoover, is to have the third reading of the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I'll vote yes. Mrs. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have the third reading of the ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a tax increment financing agreement with Factory 52 LLC, authorizing all other documents and instruments necessary to implement the terms of such agreement and authorizing and approving related matters.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoover.
I move we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to pass the ordinance. Mrs. Bowling.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Bowling. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. This is an ordinance establishing priority of property tax exemptions granted for parcels of real property located within the city of Norwood, Ohio. Mrs. Hoover.
Move we have the third reading.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to have the third reading of the ordinance. Mrs. Franzen.
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Franzen. Any discussion? Mrs. Hoover.
I was wondering if Mr. Woodside would like to come up one last time.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what this does is it establishes the priority of the CRA exemption over your TIF exemption. Arguably, I think that it does that by law, the way the statute is written. But really, again, what it does is that, so normally you pay taxes, property owner pays taxes. The TIF sort of exempts those taxes, and instead you make the payments in lieu of tax. The CRA, normally without a TIF, it would exempt the property owner from a portion of the payment of those taxes. In this case, where you have a CRA overlying a TIF, it exempts the property owner from paying the payments in lieu of tax, service payments or the TIF payments. Again, I believe that the statute says that any other exemption trumps a TIF exemption, but what this does is just states clearly that the priority of the different exemptions that the city has established with respect to these properties, it establishes the priority of the CRA exemption over the TIF exemption. But I can go into that further if you'd like. Yes.
Mrs. Franzen.
Yes, so essentially, it just clarifies what is already true and legal within the state of Ohio, that the CRAs trump essentially the TIF exemption.
Yeah, so what it says basically, and I can give you some different examples that maybe make it a little simpler. Basically, it says that other tax exemptions trump your TIFs. And the reason why that is because this is a little more complicated, obviously, but take, for example, and there's lots of detail to this like everything else, so don't hold me to every detail of it. But basically, assume you had a property and it has a TIF. And instead of making tax payments, you're making TIF payments or payments in lieu of tax. And then let's say a property owner is a 501c3 or a church or a government or something, and they come in and buy property within that TIF. The statute allows them to take advantage of a property tax exemption in a TIF area by exempting them from the payments in lieu of tax, just like they would get an exemption from tax, their exemption from the TIF payments. So they didn't want the fact that the TIF existed to prevent those entities from getting that same tax benefit. It can vary a little bit depending on how your TIF exists, but basically what the statute says is that other TIF exemptions or other tax exemptions trump the TIF exemption. So in this case, and there's been lots of different unexpected results at the state when you file for different exemptions. So this is just to make it clear that this was the intent for this CRA exemption or CRA exemptions to trump the TIF payment or the obligation to make TIF payments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Further discussion or questions? Motion on the floor by Mrs. Hoover, seconded by Mrs. Franzen, is to have the third reading of the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Gurdon?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have the third reading of the ordinance.
An ordinance establishing priority of property tax exemptions granted for parcels of real property located within the city of Norwood, Ohio.
Thank you. Is there a motion to pass the ordinance? Mr. Gurdon.
Make a motion to pass the ordinance?
Motion by Mr. Gurdon to pass the ordinance. Is there a second? Mrs. Franzen.
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Franzen. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Gurdon?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to second readings of ordinances and resolutions. This is a resolution adopting the City of Norwood Treasurer's amended Statement of Investment Policy. Mr. Moore.
A motion that we have the second reading?
Motion by Mr. Moore to have the second reading. Mr. Braden.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Gurdon?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have the second reading of the resolution.
Resolution adopting the City of Norwood Treasurer's amended Statement of Investment Policy.
Thank you. Moving on to introductory readings of ordinances and resolutions. The first is an ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the detailed financial plan for the City of Norwood and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Franzen.
I move that we suspend the rules and have all three readings of this ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Franzen to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the ordinance. Is there a second? Mr. Gurdon.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Mr. Gurdon. Any discussion? Yes, Mrs. Franzen.
I believe the mayor has the FRPs, but I know that we had passed the FRP earlier in the month, and he had sent us some of the changes, which most of which were from the state or including line items that were mistakenly put in wrong, and also the other two funds, if I am remembering correctly. So even though I hate to rush, I feel like we have had 98% of this FRP for about a month or so. And the changes that I saw seemed logical and consistent. So that's why I'm comfortable doing three readings. I also want to just think that we have an abnormally long time in between council meetings. We have 3 weeks in between as opposed to 2 due to the 5 Tuesdays in April. So I want to make sure that we can get a budget in front of the state as quickly as possible. Notwithstanding the request for an arborist, I do agree that it would be good to have an arborist that we can use for the city. I'm not sure I'm comfortable not passing the budget just for that line item, but that is something I definitely support. And I was actually looking into trying to get my own arborist certification because I do work with trees and have for 15 years now. So that may be a potential way that we could get someone with arborist certifications. I also got chainsaw certified by the forestry department. No big deal. I can take down trees. So
Mrs. Bowling.
Trees and bugs go great together. I love that. Mr. Mayor, just if you would like to address the changes made briefly for folks at home.
Sure. So this went in front, thank you. Quick, I'm clicking the draw.
I know.
This went in front of the Auditor State's Office, it went to the Financial Recovery Commission. They discussed it, they looked at the 2 pages, so we got the 2 pages back in there. 2 weeks ago, you received a copy of the Financial Recovery Plan. Within those 2 weeks, it was also provided the Auditor State's Office again. They did a review of it. Within those 2 weeks, we finalized some of the tentative agreement part of the police contract, so that finalizes out the 4 contracts. And that's one of the reasons why this has taken a little bit longer this year. Every 3 years, we have contract negotiations with union employees, and we try to adopt those and put those things in. So there were some changes made to that to accommodate the changes in funding for the police department. There were some formulas in there that, once again, were found. There's 800 and something formulas that are in there. I know Councilman McGurton found one. I know that Councilman Moore found some issues. So those were corrected. It is very much dynamic that as you look at these, as we get, some information back from the Auditor of State's Office, they'll say, well, you need to change this, this, and this, and their personnel costs. But what they don't realize is, well, that person retired and this person went from this job to that job in the interim, and this. So there's some dynamic and fluidity to this whole process. But this is a good financial recovery plan. I hope to get it approved tonight, signed off by you guys, and then in front of the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission in the morning, and then be finished with it and get it into the system. My plan going forward is that the city, as we put a budget director on and as we have new staff in the auditor's office, that we will be working on this basically really more in September, October timeframe, because that's when all the department heads are putting in all their requests and looking at capital and looking at what they need. So all this, if you look at this, it's April. This budget stuff and putting together the financial recovery plan started 6 months ago. And, we're finally getting to a point where we've got a final product that can be passed and move forward. But I'd like to see us get to a part where we put together a financial recovery plan in-house and that it's completed by the end of the year. And then all we have to do is tweak all that work that was done in January and February, dump other numbers in that are now real numbers, and go from there. So it should be an easier process. It'll be an easier process next year. So that's where we stand right now.
Thank you. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, question for the mayor, through the chair. So I'm no tree hugger, but I am a conservationist, wildlife and fish and wildlife lover. So have we gave any thought to, and I just want to address Mrs. Bowles' comments prior to us reaching this. Have we had any conversations about an arborist? I'm not really against it. Maybe in the past or in the future, after we pass this, I can see of the need to pass this and get this in front of the financial recovery team in the morning. We can update this in the future if we do decide that something like that is something we want to go after. We can update this, and I'm just curious if that's okay. And have you had any thoughts about adding an arbiter
Mayor Snyder,
to the plan?
Well, since the comments about an arborist 15 minutes ago, or I guess it was an hour and a half ago. No, really, I was not looking at this saying, oh my gosh, we got to get an arborist in here. But there's contractual money in public lands and buildings. There's contractual funds that could be used for an arborist. You're not talking about spending $60,000 on an arborist. You're talking about a small amount. There's contractual money that could be used to work something like that into it. That's not beyond the realm of possibility with this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. My question.
Mrs. Bowling, I know you've been.
I was just sort of going to make the exact same comment that Mayor Schneider just made, just for folks who have not been looking at this for weeks. That this reviews the last 3 years and forecasts the next 5. We do not pass this and then write checks for every line item in here. It is a working document. It can be amended at any point. And things that are on here, as much as I would love every single thing that's in here to happen exactly how it states, we've talked about that at previous meetings, things can grow and change and evolve and shift from one year to the next year, et cetera. So the importance for us to be compliant with this, it's quite important that we remain compliant. We can always amend this document. We are not passing this tonight, and then we can't touch any money for the rest of time and eternity. That's all.
Mrs. Hoover.
I was just going to respond to the arborist comment. Ms. Bull, I've been working with our state forester for our region for about 6-7 months now. And actually, she at this time does not recommend that we hire an arborist. If you recall, we did have one in years back, and that was one of the positions that we had to get rid of when we were in fiscal, in financial straits, if my recollection is correct. And her recommendation is that we work with, within the staffing that we have. We do have a gentleman on Public Works who he might become interested in becoming an arborist. At the same time, we do have a woman on our tree board who is becoming arbor certified. And that's something that she can also assist with. And maybe I'll just jump in with the reason we're doing the Arbor Day resolution is that's one of the requirements for us to be a Tree City USA. There's a few things you have to do. You have to have a tree ordinance, which we do. It's not awesome, but we've got one. You need to have a tree board, which we have. We're still filling some spots. We need to celebrate Arbor Day, which the tree board did, I think it was a week or two ago. They did a plant swap and gave out some trees. And we do need to have a certain percentage. It's 2%, it's $2 per capita. So essentially it's $40,000 for the city of Norwood to go towards trees. That doesn't mean we need to put $40 in our line item. That means whenever Public Works is mulching our trees, we can count that time. Whenever they're trimming our trees, they can count that time. We just had a big tree come down on Floral. Them attending to that can count for those hours. In fact, I even asked the abatement, the ivy abatement I did with the Girl Scouts. Though that counts for volunteer hours, which I think is kind of child labor. I'm all for it. Sorry. Someone's gonna screenshot that. We're being very thoughtful and cautious. One thing that I really respect about this forester is she does not want us to get our toes over our skis. She does not want us to put $40,000 in our budget for an arborist, hire an arborist, get a bunch of trees in the ground. The world comes to an end, we can't afford it anymore, and then our trees die. So it's very important that we can support anything that we're doing. So we're being very thoughtful and cautious with a goal in mind for absolutely increasing our tree canopy.
Can I respond to some of this discussion?
This is bowling.
Through the president, can I encourage that we have that discussion on the Arbor Day topic on the
Absolutely.
agenda and not during the FRP discussion?
That's fine by me.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, just a question through the chair. So to Mrs. Hoover, who is this lady? She's giving you recommendations. Does she live in Norwood, or does she do some extensive studying here in
She's our
Norwood?
state arborist.
Does she live in Norwood?
She does not. But
Has she been in? Does she come here and study Norwood?
Yeah, she's here all the time.
Okay.
But she's in
Okay.
charge. It's a state part of the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
And she is a forester.
And you're working with her, and she's informed you that we do not need an arbiter.
Not we don't need, but right now that is not our top priority because it's an expensive.
And she knows our priorities. I'm just curious how extensive her knowledge is in Norwood, like how extensive her knowledge is of this community. That's all. I'm just curious. That's all. I mean, it's okay to get recommendations, but if you're just giving recommendations and you don't really have extensive knowledge, I'm just kind of wondering about the knowledge. That's all.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yeah, through the chair to answer Mr. Braden's question, I've talked to Mrs. Van Buren as well about stuff, and I think that her recommendations are more geared toward, since we are a city of this size with this amount of budget, hiring an arborist may not typically be viable. For larger cities like Cincinnati, with many more trees that on the city's property, it becomes a much more viable operation. Whereas an arborist contracted for Norwood full-time would potentially be not the best use of our resources. However, just like Mrs. Bowling said, Mrs. Hoover said, I know that we have contractual services here. We can try to figure out through the budget process and through what the public works say, what kind of arborist work we might need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Franzen. I appreciate that.
Any further discussion on the FRP? Mr. Moore?
I think Mr. Bonsall might have something to say.
Yeah, I just want to highly, highly emphasize the importance of passing this tonight, that this is critical. Somebody voting no, I mean, I don't know what we're going to vote no on now, but somebody voting no because of an arborist thing is absolutely, it would not be good for the future of the city. We've got a lot of projects in the works, and Noah could give you the list. The list is in the FRP, and we can't get started on those until we get this started. And it's already been delayed a month. In the tax office, we have another tax clerk that we're going to be able to hire when this is done. And so we would have loved to have had that tax clerk during the meat and potatoes of the tax season, but we weren't able to get that. So I just highly, highly want to emphasize how important it is that we get this passed tonight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, motion on the floor by Mrs. Franzen, seconded by Mr. Garten, is to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Absolutely.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have all three readings of the ordinance.
Ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the detailed financial plan for the city of Norwood and declaring an emergency. Ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the detailed financial plan for the city of Norwood and declaring an emergency. Ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the detailed financial plan for the city of Norwood and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Braden to pass the ordinance. Mrs. Bowling.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Mrs. Bowling. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to the next item. This is an ordinance amending the Norwood Public Records Policy adopted by Ordinance 52-2020. Mrs. Franzen.
I move we have the first reading.
Motion by Mrs. Franzen to have the first reading of the ordinance. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Ms. Royce.
I just wanted to pop in. There were like 15 people at the Law and Ordinance meeting who talked about this with us, or had to listen to this discussion. So we wanted to put it back on. We didn't make any amendments to this yet. We're gonna have another Law and Ordinance meeting next week about it. We wanted to get this back on the agenda to see if anyone had any public comment. No one has, but if you want to come to the Law and Ordinance meeting, feel free. It's Tuesday at 6, or next Tuesday at 6, I believe. I don't have my phone, so I cannot confirm.
Mr. Garden.
At that Law and Ordinance meeting, I was surprised to learn the number of requests that we get and the amount of time that it takes to do these requests for body cam footage. There is background context that supports this. We have lots of people from out of state who are just YouTube media people who request these body cam footage, and it takes one of our officers off duty to do this. There are plenty of other requests as well, even nosy neighbors who request this stuff. So I have my hesitation about the cost of it, but there is, I think, more justification than I understood before listening to our police talk about this.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. And Ms. Rice, so just to be clear, so this is basically the same ordinance as we saw 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
The things like the clarification about discovery, things like that are let's say, pending in the background.
Ms. Royce.
Trying to be polite. Mr. Powers talked about it as well, but this won't affect criminal discovery. It would affect civil discovery, I believe, if you have a civil, no? Oh, I misunderstood. If it's any legal.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. If somebody's suing us, or thinking about suing us, they can make a public records request for information. And in that case, if it's a public records request, it will be, this policy will apply. But if it's in the process of discovery, if somebody has filed a suit and submits a discovery request, we're not going to charge them for that.
Got it.
So,
Sure.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't mean to imply anything specific about it, but just I know that was a point of contention 2 weeks ago and things like that. And so you have some kind of, let's say, running list of improvements to this that you intend to make, and that'll resurface in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Ms. Royce.
Honestly, I did want to try to create an income-based waiver because, like I said, I trust our current safety service director, but I was more concerned about future administrations and whether or not they would be as consistent in waiving fees. But as Mr. Powers pointed out, that would require you're allowed to anonymously request a public record. So if we asked for income, then we would possibly have financial documents of theirs that we may not want to hold on to or have to begin with. So when I brought it, that was my intent. When I brought it to the committee, that was my intent, was to try to figure out if we could find a uniform way to waive costs. But information-based waiver of costs would be difficult. And yeah, similar to Mr. Girton, Mr. Powers and our police department really shed some light on why this actually is a pretty useful fee to have. I'll say unfortunately, because people are requesting some records, so not superfluously, but for YouTube channels and things of that nature. So.
Mrs. Friend.
Yeah, I happened to be at the committee meeting as well to talk about another thing, and I'm glad I was because it was really enlightening, and I had shared some of the similar concerns. So I look forward. I'm glad that we're doing the full 3 readings on this, so we have time to really think about it. And I'm glad that we're getting so much good information from the police and Mr. Powers. So, yeah, thank you for happening to be there at the same meeting I had to be in.
Mrs. Bowling.
Unless I have it in my calendar wrong, that meeting's actually Monday.
Sorry.
I think I'm right about that.
Thank you.
That could be me too.
I truly don't have my calendar.
Monday, April 28th at 6 p.m. I would encourage anybody who has feelings about this to come and speak to the committee. My point of concern about this 2 weeks ago and again at the committee was that this was an amendment of a bill. The House only had the language of this bill for an hour and a half before they voted on it, and it passed at 2:30 in the morning with no testimony, no public hearing, no public feedback of any sort. So before we choose to be, I want to say, the second municipality in the state of Ohio to adopt this legislation, I would like to get some public feedback from folks who feel strongly about it. In either way. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I haven't been following this, so maybe you guys can enlighten me. And I'm a little confused. You mentioned that there wasn't much public involvement as far as, so why is this in committee again? I missed this. Tell me again, why is this in committee and what brought this to committee?
Ms. Royce.
Administration put this on our agenda at our last meeting.
Okay.
And it's to charge $50 an hour for public records requests for the police department.
Okay.
Or, yeah, for body cam footage, sorry.
Right, I had a
specifically.
discussion with that, so
Yes.
but I guess I missed last meeting, and I do apologize for that. Okay, so basically, someone makes a public request for records, and we want to charge them for records now, because there's a lot of people wanting records that it's costing us money to give them now, so, okay. Well, that's kind of like a slippery slope, because if we start, you said we're not going to charge for discovery, but now we're going to charge for somebody else who comes for one YouTube channel. So I guess the discussion is you start charging people who's get charged and who don't. you know, and if somebody can't afford it, but they're trying to defend themselves, like, I guess that's a really slippery slope. So I'm just wanting to get a discussion there.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yep, and I think that's why I'm glad that we're having another law and ordinance meeting to kind of allow people to kind of talk through that. And I really did, I had a lot of similar concerns, and it was really enlightening. If you have a chance to talk to Chief Sumner or their information officer, whose last name I am not recalling at the second, my apologies. Huh? Yeah. Yes, that person. Or Mr. Powers, it really helped me kind of understand the impetus behind this, but it is good to think through these unintended consequences when it's something like this. But yeah.
Mr. Gurdon?
Just for clarity, this applies to body camera footage. There's a requirement that one of our officers goes through and edits out any kind of private information if they're talking to somebody in a car accident and their driver's license has their social security number on it. One of our officers has to go through and redact that. And so I too have concerns about the cost. It was said in the committee meeting that it costs one of our officers, I guess we charge $50 an hour if one of our officers would go to Rookwood to do a traffic duty or something like that. So they came up with $50 an hour based upon that number.
Thank you. Ms. Royce?
I feel like we should add, there's a cap as well. We cannot charge more than $750. So at that point, you're getting a lot of footage at that point. It's 10 hours worth of work. But yeah, we are capped by the state. So even if they request a ton of footage, like we cannot charge more than that for the total request.
I hope none of our low-income people need any requests.
Mrs. Franzen?
Never mind. I apologize.
All right. Mrs. Hoover?
Mr. Braden, through the chair, I was going to just share that one of the examples that the officer gave was if there was an issue at the school and they had a whole lot of students that were milling around and there were multiple officers so every officer has a body cam. And so they had to go through and redact each face. And so that could well have been over 10 hours of body cam footage. So I think I agree with everyone else. There's the balance between giving people information and us being swamped with that could potentially become someone's full-time job is just doing body cam footage for folks. So I don't disagree with you. I think it's a tightrope.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that, Ms. Hoover. Yeah, I think that our day and age with our, I forget what they're called, audits, like they do First Amendment audits. I think that's probably a bastard, making it tougher for our police officers to come up with that information. So I can understand that. I just first heard it, it just sounded, a little excessive, but I understand. I appreciate you guys, the information from you guys. Thank you.
Mrs. Bowling?
And just to clarify, the reason that the committee felt that it was important to have this first reading was so that we could have a public discussion about it. So we are not voting on whether or not we support the motion tonight. We are voting, we sent it here to have the first reading so that we could have this discussion and continue the discussion over the upcoming weeks. So tonight's vote has nothing to do with your support of this ordinance or not. It is just to continue the conversation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor by Mrs. Franzen, seconded by Mrs. Hoover, is to have the first reading of the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce? I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Gurdon?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have the first reading of the ordinance.
Ordinance amending the Norwood Public Records Policy adopted by Ordinance 52-2020.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Vogelpol Fire Equipment to purchase 32 self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, units and associated necessary equipment in support of the respiratory protection program for the fire department and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore.
A motion that we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Motion by Mr. Moore to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the ordinance. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Mrs. Hoover.
Wanted to see if Mr. McCabe, Chief McCabe would like to come up. He's been here all evening.
Chief McCabe.
Thank you. So this is one of the triads of protection for your firefighters, right? So their turnout gear, their radio, and their STBA form that really important protective layer that they utilize. So this ordinance will replace our existing outdated air packs. It's much needed. Thank goodness we get it done now. Obviously, the delay in the FRP was a tough piece with this, like anyone else. But yeah, getting this done is going to be enormously helpful to us. It's part of a cooperative bid agreement, or not bid, cooperative purchasing agreement through Sourcewell, so you don't have to go out to bid, so it speeds up the process. So I can answer any questions they have regarding any of the pieces of this.
Mrs. Ball.
Not a question, but just sort of a statement. Things are not getting less expensive anytime soon, so I think the somewhat sense of urgency here is to ensure that prices do not raise before we replace these. I will say, I feel like I've talked about this before. My mother is a retired firefighter and recently had a respiratory health scare that was related to her career. I think that it is vital that we take care of people who spend their entire lives taking care of us. And this is a great way for us to ensure the safety of these people. So,
Any further discussion? Mr. Moore.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just add in terms of the sense of urgency as well. I had a chance to go and spend some time at the fire department recently. Hear from the different captains, lieutenants, firefighters, and just to hear them specifically talk about the specific challenges they face, and the need for this equipment. It was just really illuminating. And I'm not a big suspend the rules and have all three readings guy, but in this particular case, I think it's warranted. And I do just want to call out that the money that is allocated here is in this 2025 capital planning worksheet. And so, it's seems like a great need, and it's in the plan and ready to go.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor by Mr. Moore, seconded by Mrs. Hoover, is to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the ordinance. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am. All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have all three readings of the ordinance.
Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Vogopol Fire Equipment to purchase 32 self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA units, and associated necessary equipment in support of the Respiratory Protection Program for the Fire Department and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Vogopol Fire Equipment to purchase 32 self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA units, and associated necessary equipment in support of the Respiratory Protection Program for the Fire Department and declaring an emergency. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety Service to enter into a contract with Vogopol Fire Equipment to purchase 32 self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA units, and associated necessary equipment in support of the Respiratory Protection Program for the Fire Department and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mrs. Bowling.
I move that we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mrs. Bowling to pass the ordinance. Mr. Braden.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to the final item. This is a resolution observing April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Norwood, Ohio. Mrs. Hoover.
I move we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Motion by Mrs. Hoover to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the resolution. Mrs. Bowling.
I second that.
Seconded by Mrs. Bowling. Any discussion? Mrs. Bowling.
Mrs. Hoover, can you share with us the benefits of being established as a Tree City USA?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Basically, it is the foundation for any other federal grants that we would need. So I guess I can share this now. And there's an I can share this, right? There's another grant that we are eligible for that the tree board and I am going to try to help them apply for up to $100,000 for trees. That's sort of separate, but there are lots of government programs available. But in order to apply, you have to meet certain criteria, and one of the criteria is that you're a tree city. So it's sort of like the getting into the entry point for that funding. Did it answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Royce.
I didn't know if Ms. Bull still wanted to make any comments.
Ms. Bowl, were there any comments you wanted to make on the matter of arborist or Arbor Day?
You want me to, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was chatting like Dallas said.
So in the past, I have been pretty supportive of the concept of Arbor Day and building a team around that because, you know, early on when Mayor Hochbein was here, he was the one that started it because, you know, we just didn't have anything. It was totally unfocused. And at that time, cities like Wyoming were doing it. And they had, I believe at that time, they had, Mayor, maybe you remember this, they had achieved Tree City status. And one nice thing about the tree board at that time, because I was on it, is we would have different like speakers and people with information come in and give us information. And you know, just to give you an example, you mentioned federal grants. Well, Wyoming, if you drive down Vine Street, they have these super thick power lines, okay? And so when you have those, you can allow the trees to get a lot closer to the power lines. So that's why they have that beautiful tree canopy over Vine Street. So in any event, I think it is worthwhile focusing, but it's my opinion that a lot of the federal grants that are based on all this layering are going to go away. Just my opinion. I feel like it's going to be every man for himself as far as our city against other city, fighting for resources. And when you are competing for those resources, you're going to need more than a sticker from the Arbor Day. More recently, when I did the tree giveaway, and that was trickled down basically kind of a collaboration between Arbor Day and resources that OKI had. So that was through Taking Root. And there was a platform that citizens used to sign up for the tree that they wanted. Well, as it turns out, that platform was supplied through Arbor Day Foundation. That came apparently, I don't know the numbers, but with a hefty fee. So what you are doing when you work with a nonprofit entity sometimes is you are paying for their intellectual and employee infrastructure and capacity, which is why they built that platform so that, you know, they could provide this service for tree giveaways. So once OKI got into it, they said, gee, we could do this all the time with many communities, 3 different communities every year if we just built out our own platform, which is what they did. They got a grant to do that instead of go back to Arbor Day. So, buyer beware. I'm sorry, but, God bless the child that's got his own. And that's what I think our Norwood should have. I think personally what I've experienced when I meet with Clint, and we all know, we've all worked with Clint from one time or another,
He's putting out fires all the time. It's a crisis management, they plan, but his phone is blowing up the whole time I'm out there looking at trees with him. So I feel that having someone that's going to go out and efficiently take a stack of work orders from See Click Fix and look at these things and check them out and do a survey and work efficiently through the day is going to get us more results. That's why I suggested it. I didn't really expect you to change your budget for me, just trying to scare you a little bit, which I've never done before. Come on, give me some credit. And I just feel like having 16 hours, whatever, based on when the stack of papers piles up and going out and addressing these problems. So then we can have recommendations and have some time to budget them instead of Dana Bull going out there and saying, wow, a tree limb at Doral almost fell on my head today. So I think Arbor Day is great for kids. They go home and they plant a tree, and that's a wonderful experience. My father would call the nurseryman and he'd come out and we would watch that, and that was a big deal. But city kids don't have that, so Arbor Day is great for that. And so, I support it. I just don't want to do it.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoover.
Just for clarity, there is no cost for us to be a part of Tree City USA or for Arbor Day for the resolution. And the event was already held a few weeks ago.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Bowling.
I also just don't think that anyone has any opposition to, in the future, potentially hiring an arborist. This is to assist us in receiving grant money to purchase trees for an arborist to service in the future. So I think this is more of an order of operations thing. No one is opposed to having an arborist to care for our trees in the future. We just need to make sure we can afford to have the trees for them to care for. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor by Mrs. Hoover, seconded by Mrs. Bowling, is to suspend the rules and have all three readings of the resolution. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Please have all three readings of the resolution.
A resolution observing and celebrating April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Norwood, Ohio. A resolution observing and celebrating April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Norwood, Ohio. A resolution observing and celebrating April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Norwood, Ohio.
Thank you. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to pass the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Braden to pass the resolution. Mrs. Hoover.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Hoover. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Royce, I will vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting yes, the motion carries. Moving on to administration reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like for you guys to really just sort of close your eyes and think for a minute about the city of Norwood years ago. So years ago, if you go to the Historical Society, you can see some pictures of this, but in your mind's eye, you could probably, most of you have probably seen them, and even some of the people out in the audience, of Globe Warnicki. When Globe Warnicki was right at Carthage, there was a corner that came down, and Globe Warnicki was the world's largest office supply manufacturer. So it was huge, absolutely huge. 5 stories, huge building, Globe Warnicki, right? And they ended up, what they built was, wood office furniture, lateral. They started out and had the patent on filing systems and on lateral files. And Globe Warnicki used a lot of varnishes. So they had some lagoons on the back of that area, on the back of that property, and the paint areas, and there was runoff, and it was industrial runoff, and it was, this is a long time ago. So the Ohio EPA wasn't out there knocking on their door all the time. So when they closed down, then those buildings sat there for years. I don't know who the mayor was, but the mayor, and I'm sure city council at that time said, oh my gosh, what can we do? We've got to get rid of that gargantuan building, and we've got to figure out what to put there. So they probably did some incentives back there, back then, to try to get somebody to redo something with that land. And they have, clearly. But it did sit, I think if any of you will recall from growing up around here, it was a big blacktop parking lot for many, many years, because it's not greenfield. So it was brownfield all those years. Now the Paycor site's there, and we've got a beautiful development over in that area and some different things going on. That's one. Two is the General Motors plant. And this was Mayor Sanker time frame. You probably knew Mayor Sanker. Did you know that? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're too young to know Mayor Sanker.
He was a neighbor right across.
But General Motors. So General Motors was there, and you might recall that when General Motors closed down, that huge, think about how big General Motors was. Rodney, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Absolutely huge. When General Motors said we're closing down, they said we're just closing down. We're just closing. And the city, Sanker, and the city council and the forefathers said, wait a minute, and they brought in the top dog lawyer, Stan Chesley, and he sued them to get them to tear that down and to do development stuff. But it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it took a lot of money from the Ohio Department of Development and many others to get that Wall Street development in place. And guess what? It was brownfield, and that there had to be incentives. First of all, there had to be a lawsuit to get the buildings and all that stuff taken out of there. And then there had to be incentives put on top of that to get the developments going in place. Remember, that's the Warren Brothers and all that. So that was another one. That was back during the Sanker timeframe. And then you had the Hochbein timeframe. We had LeBlond. LeBlond was a machine tool manufacturer where Rookwood is. It was machine tool. There was a small portion of it, and I'll say a small portion of homes that were taken over when they built the Rookwood expansion. But the original one was the LeBlond building. And that LeBlond building was machine tool. It was heavy industry. And guess what? It was all brownfield. It wasn't greenfield. So as they did that development, as they were working to get that cleaned up, there were all sorts of public funds that had to be put in place to try to get that redeveloped, right? This is all in our little city here. That was LeBlond, that was Hochbein. And then really the playing card company, where we keep talking about PLK coming in, and they put a ton of money into tearing that building down. And I don't know if any of you had went through that. Most people really didn't drive past Playing Card Company very much. It wasn't a very busy corner in the city. But that building was falling apart. It was dilapidated. And it had been there for years. The Playing Card Company moved out. They're still in business. They didn't go out of business. They moved out. They got incentives to move over to Hebron, Kentucky. There were incentives for them to move their business over there. And they said, well, we can get out of this old dilapidated building that has all sorts of problems. And luckily, we had a developer come in to develop that. And that's where we stand with that property right now. And then we have the Quality Insight. And I don't know that people in this neighborhood realize Quality Insight went downhill fast, and then it was dilapidated, but there were still people living in it. But then there were some different issues. So the police department and the health department actually ended up shutting the building down, saying, sorry, you can't do that in our city. So now the building just sits there, and then out-of-town developer buys it cheap, on the cheap, right? This dentist from Texas buys it. And what's he do? He lets it sit there because he's just gonna sit on it. It's just investment property. He knows it's right here. It's investment. He'll just sit on it. So then finally, we push, and we get it to the point that it goes to auction, and we finally get somebody to purchase it. But then guess what? There were dry cleaners there. There were other things. There are some environmental issues on that property too. But the city couldn't buy it. We tried. We were players in the auction. I was on the phone. We were trying to bid it up, and we're trying to get in there, and we're going to buy it, but we couldn't. And it went beyond what the city had money, and I don't know what the city would have did once we got it for all the money. Would have been really hard to tear it down. Luckily, we had a developer buy that, and the developer was willing to take a chance on that property. Now, we're again in a situation where we've got a piece of property that's being developed, and they're looking for some incentives. But in your mind's eye, you got to keep perspective on what we are trying to do here. It's not that we were just trying to develop this city real quickly and try to make things. We're trying to get good developments in here, and we do have to provide some incentives for them because it's not greenfield. This is not an old airport. This isn't an old old field that's been, plowed for 100 years and they had corn and soybeans. These are properties that have been used. We've got a couple more around here, and we'd like to have developers come, and we'd like for them to take a chance on building their development in the city of Norwood. But we're sending the wrong message right now. We're sending a bad message that even though it's brownfield, and even though they're going to have to come in and spend a ton of money just making it developable, the city's maybe not going to support that in the future. And that's what this council is sort of putting that message out to people. And that's what other people in the community are putting out. And we can say, because I've been around here for quite a while, I remember many years where we were totally stagnant. It didn't seem like there was much going on in the city of Norwood at all. And we're moving forward, and we've got a lot of good stuff going on, but we've got to continue to keep in mind what we're trying to do here. And that's have a great community where we can raise our families, where we're not struggling every year to make ends meet. And we're getting there, but it's one thing. So then I'll end on a more, I think that's a positive note as you think about the history of Norwood and what we've been able to accomplish and the mountains we have overcome. When you have some of these places closed down, even when the playing card company closed down, everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a heck of an impact on the city's finances. And it was. And General Motors was devastating. But we bounced back and we worked through those. And now we're on the right path. We just need to keep going the right path. So now I'll go back to what the chief was saying. Chief Dwayne Sumner, who's a really good police chief. He came on board and he's really taken the department in the right direction. So much good being accomplished by our police department. And, sometimes you think like, are the police our friends? I mean, it seems like they're always giving me a ticket. I drove past them. Maybe I was driving too fast. I was nervous. I slowed down, but they are our friends. They are here helping us. And Dwayne's, the chief's whole, as you watch the numbers and the statistics, we as just normal citizens, I haven't called the police in my house actually ever in my life. I have never had to call the police in my house, thank God. And that's because we've got such a good police department. I've never really had to call the ambulance to my house. Thank God we've got a great fire department. So our police officers are big-hearted helpers that tap into resources to positively impact our lives. And he stated, some of the things that they're doing, some of the organizations that they are collaborating with is making an impact on people's lives. And that's our police officers. Those are really good people. So keep them in mind, give them a wave, say hello. When you see them walking up, say hello, be friendly to them. They're very friendly people. So just treat our police officers as they should be treated, with respect and dignity, for doing a tough job, a tough job that I'm sure a lot of us would never want to be put in some of those situations, but they step up and they really are great people. We've got a great police department and they do a lot of really good work. I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor Schneider?
Oh, and thanks for passing the FRP. I'm glad I got one more stage, which is tomorrow morning, trying to get it passed with the commission, so.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was really, really, really nice. Mr. Mayor, that took me down memory lane. And I don't think, if I'm looking around the room, three or four of us maybe could really grasp the actual site of General Motors and how big that was. And unless you lived through that and walked that, you don't know that. You can think about that, that, but you really don't. And that is just amazing to think back that what we had and all those great companies that you mentioned. Didn't we also have Rookwood Tile as well? I'm just curious. We had the LeBlanc site. Wasn't that a Rookwood Tile site before LeBlanc, or am I wrong about that? I could be wrong. That was prior to me, being aware.
Prior to me, but
we had Rookwood Tile,
there's
a pretty big
connection.
tile company that was located in Norwood. That was people are still talking about. But anyway, that was awesome. And I had a point that I lost, but that was really, really nice. Just to grasp and remember that type of the time in Norwood was a beautiful time. So, and I know what you meant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mayor Schneider? Mr. Bonzo?
Thank you, Mr. President. So first, I just want to say that we all support the school district here. I think that no matter how we voted or how we I don't have a personal vote on this, but how we voted now or in the past, like, our children go to the school district. The school district is important to us. It's a identity of Norwood. There are some communities that are outside of the city of Cincinnati that has Cincinnati Public Schools as their school district. And I think it's important that I think the school district it's just a huge part of the community. And I think it's something that we do not want to lose. Even if we kept the building and it was still a high school, I don't think we wanted to lose our independent school district. That being said, the vote that you all did tonight to turn down the hotel CRA is not the way to protect the school district. You all turned down the only part of the new part of this development that's actually going to produce any tax dollars for the school district. All of those townhomes that they're going to go there, that's going to get 100% CRA for 15 years. They're going to get nothing for those 15 years. And you all, the one part of this, the hotel, we voted no on. And not only did we vote no on that for the property tax stand, that's $200,000 a year in city revenue for hotel taxes that we'll be getting. That's earnings tax revenue from people that are going to be working there. That's visitors that are going to be coming into the development that are going to be spending money. This is a very short-sighted vote. The Rookwood had CRAs on it, the original Rookwood, the first two developments, Rookwood Commons and Rookwood Pavilion, had CRAs on it originally. And those are now producing millions of dollars a year for the school district. Millions of dollars a year. Most school districts in this state don't have anywhere near the commercial amount of land that's helping to feed them as the Norwood City School District has. There is a huge misunderstanding of how all of this works. And I know there's frustrations on both sides, but voting no on that's not the right way. What you could do that would actually be impactful and that would actually help in these discussions is to get rid of the 100% automatic CRA for large residential properties that they don't even have to apply for and make it equal to commercial where it's 75% and they have to come and get approval from council. That would actually impact, and that would then negate the lawsuit the school district filed against us because it would then make it equal. If residential commercial property be treated equal, there'd be no reason that we'd need a parcelized property. That would be the way to make a difference. Voting the hotel down, which is the best part of that development, from a tax standpoint, it was not the way to do it. So I'm frustrated personally because I wasn't expecting that. I mean, of course, Mr. Moore spoke up, and I appreciate that he expressed how he was going to vote. But it's kind of frustrating that we didn't know. The positive part, though, and I'll just kind of note this because, I mean, rules of council, I'm a little bit of an expert on, I would say, is that you can vote to reconsider, or somebody can make a motion to reconsider, somebody that voted no. It can happen any time at the meeting, and I'm just going to read this just so it's out there because I think it's that important that we at least spend 2 minutes so that we know what the council rules say. So motion 15, this is on page 7 of the rules of council. The council may vote to reconsider its action on a matter. The motion to do so must be made by a member who voted with the prevailing side, the majority side in case of a tie. At that meeting during which the original vote was taken, the motion cannot interrupt deliberation on a pending matter, but it is in order at any time before the final adjournment of the meeting. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, either one of the three of you, Mr. Braden, you might be one that might be willing to do this, but I would highly recommend that somebody makes a motion to reconsider that ordinance. Bring it back on the table and let's pass it. This literally is the only thing that's going to give money to the school district. This is it. Like, and if they change that to townhomes or to residential, which very well could happen, then we have nothing. And then we don't have the $200,000 for hotel tax that we would have had otherwise.
Just for a point of clarity, it is someone who voted, in this case, who voted yes. Majority was a yes vote. It was just that we didn't have the 5 to pass it because of the emergency clause, but majority did vote yes. It was 4-3.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that we can work on the wording, but I guess that's even more positive. So if somebody in the majority could make a motion and we could just vote on it again. If it gets the votes, it gets the votes, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. I think it's important enough that you all should vote on that again. I had some tax stuff to talk about. I'll talk about the next meeting. It's not as important as dealing with the hotel. And with that, I yield my time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bonzo? Mrs. Hoover.
I suppose my question is, can you go over the numbers again? Because for me in my decision, it was coming down to the math. And I think that that could be helpful to hear again.
Point of order. Can we stick to the agenda?
So moved. This is still under administration reports.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, just repeat what I said. So right now that if it's the CRA ordinance that you all have passed, if it's residential, it gets 100% 15-year CRA. So if that site is changed from hotel to residential, there's going to be no tax dollars produced for those 15 years. If the site is used as a hotel, it'll at least have the 25% of the tax dollars, plus the hotel tax, that's $200,000 a year that's going to be generated, plus the spinoff having more visitors at the site and making the site more energetic and making it, even a more appealing place to be. So, yeah, those are the numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bonzo? Mr. Moore?
I really don't have anything law department related, unless anybody's got any questions.
Mr. Moore?
May I ask a question of Law Director Moore? Is it accurate to say that this particular CRA was voted down, but a different agreement could still be reached by the city administration, the developer, and the school district at a later date, and that different document brought forward for additional consideration?
Mr. Moore?
Certainly. And actually, somebody could request that I prepare the ordinance without an emergency clause. It would take 3 meetings without 6 votes to suspend the rules, but without the emergency clause, a majority of 4 members of council could pass it.
Mr. Moore?
So, Law Director Moore, so when Mr. Bonsall says that he's very upset about what transpired here tonight, this isn't necessarily the very final act, and I agree with Mr. Bonsall that the school board in the way that things have unfolded, that there's a real risk that the no here actually makes things worse for the district than they would have been if we just let things alone. I want to be very clear that that is my opinion, that I do believe that there is a scenario here in which if we had just passed it tonight, the school district would be better off than voting no. But I think all of this is toothpaste out of the tube that just collectively, district, administration, council, that I feel a lot of frustration in wishing I could put this toothpaste back in the tube. But I can't do all that tonight. But what I can do is vote down this particular one with the urgency that everyone involved would come together and have collective buy-in for whatever that number ends up being, even if it does end up being worse than what we voted down tonight. That would be my request, and thank you, Mr. Moore, for clarifying that that is still an option available for everyone involved to get together and bring forth a new agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. So we all have our own ways that we deal with these votes and reasons for voting the way we do. So is it and I think what I heard was, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe the law department or you, Mr. President, you could take the emergency clause off this and pass it with a majority
Simple
vote.
majority.
A simple majority.
Correct.
So that could be done. That couldn't be done tonight, though, right? You couldn't make a motion to do that tonight, or you could just bring that back to the next
Correct.
meeting and do that. So really, we could just take the emergency clause off, and if we voted no, the same way we voted, they could get this passed. So like, it sounds to me like you don't need us. So that's just the way it sounds. So if you want it passed, that sounds like a way out to me. Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Just, here's a comment. What we don't know, what council does not know, what I don't know, is how any of the other players, what they're planning to do coming out of this meeting. I don't know where the developer stands on, because it's commercial development. It has to be, before they break ground, we have to have an agreement in place. For the school board, I don't know how they feel about what they may happen. I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. It's not like, oh, we know what everybody else, what they're going to do based on what council does. And I'm just want to make clear that nobody does at this point.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot one point that I wanted to make. When I make these decisions, there's a lot going into them. The last thing that I want to do is vote against a developer who I solely want to stand next to and say, you guys are doing a great job. I want to support that because I do support them. They are doing outstanding work. I really didn't want to vote no on that. That was a tough thing for me. The mayor is a personal friend of mine. He obviously wants this to happen. I wanted it to happen for him because I like him. This was not easy for me, but I did it for my own reasons, and I thank God that I have the abilities to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Moore? All right, then we move on to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Mrs. Hoover.
I'm going to go so fast, my friends. Unfinished business. Want to let folks know that we are resubmitting an application for congressional funding. This was, I think we talked about how the congressional directed funding was pulled out when they passed the state budget. So we are resubmitting an application for, I believe it's $2 million for Doral Field through Congressman Landsman, and we're very hopeful that moves forward. Unfinished. The tire and freons drop off is this Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 1 at Public Works. There's also a prescription give back day on Saturday and Sunday, I believe, at our police department. I think in particular, the prescription give back day is really important when we're taking a look at all the drug abuse. A lot of that stuff starts with misusing prescriptions. So take a look what you got, get them out of your house. You can take them to the police department and put them in one of those big cans and they take care of it. We did talk about this last time. I just wanted to thank Norwood Together for the community cleanup. We were up and down Montgomery Road. There are folks at, I think, every school cleaning up. It was a really lovely day. The weather ended up being beautiful. And I don't remember if I said this last time, in terms of mental health in schools, we do have therapists in every school building. Emily Rohde is the head school counselor. She's constantly working on new programming and prevention, and there's a lot of really good stuff happening at the school. That's what I got.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Any other unfinished business? Any new business? Mrs. Franzen.
I have something that I wanted to put into committee. Specifically, I think the Housing Committee would probably be the best one. Recently, there was a discussion about the possibility of a sober house going in on Hopkins. Under our rules, it's not really clear what a sober house is, if it falls under the distinction of a group home, which is not permitted, or a conditional use for that area. So that, I just wanted to put that in housing, so there would be more discussion to try to clarify that within the ordinances. So I think there was some confusion at the BZA about what was or was not permitted with the code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Mrs. Hoover.
I'd love to schedule a housing committee. We have everyone here. Could we do Tuesday? Oh, wow, that's a long time between council meetings. Well, I don't think people would like Monday the 28th at 7 after our law meeting. No, okay. What about Thursday the 8th? 6, 7? That works for you?
Either 6 or 7.
6 works for me.
6. Does that work for, oh, you're not on there. Sorry. Who's my other?
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore. Okay. Does that work for
I'm
you?
sorry, but what was the final proposal?
Oh, sure. Thursday, the 8th of May at 6.
Yeah, should work.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mrs. Hoover.
Okay, I got a couple more real quick ones. Also want to share, there's going to be a blood drive this weekend at Factory 52 on Saturday. If anyone wants to go, I'm ready to donate again. And also there will be the Vintage City Flea. That's a huge event that they have. Usually they do it at Cincinnati, Washington Park. Thank you, ma'am. And so it's really cool that it's going to be here in Norwood. I also wanted to announce that Norwood was voted best neighborhood. I think folks saw that. We also got best school through the City Beat Regional Greater Cincinnati. And I thought that was pretty fantastic. I did see that our city posted something about that on the social, so thank you for that. I was also hoping we could get an update on the streets plan. I know that the mayor had spoken about our old, the street survey, and just kind of wanted to get an update on where are we at with all the things. I know I've spoken with Mr. Bonsall in the past about, I would be curious to find out about bonds or a levy. I just want to get information that we can start having a conversation about. I can imagine if we were going to pave all of our streets, it would be, I don't know, $100 million or something. I mean, it would just be a ridiculous number, but that's probably about what we have to do if we were to get them all fixed. So I would love for us to have just an updated conversation about where we are and what possibilities we have. And I was talking to Mr. Zimmerman earlier today. This week, is it this week alone, they did 14.5 tons of patch between Monday and Friday last week. 14.5 tons. So our public works is working their tails off, but our streets are, you know, we all drive on them. So just want to see what options we would have. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Snyder, I don't know if you.
Or if that, I guess I'd put that into
Oh, you
committee.
wanted me to answer that? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was not, it was,
Contact Mr. Skelly, who's in charge of getting that survey done. He can give you an update on it.
oh, so he's doing the survey?
Well, he's got an RFP, he's got a request for proposals out on the information to collect it.
I suppose my question would be, could we put it in committee infrastructure to have a larger conversation about it?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yes, I will email Mr. Skelly, see what his availability is in the coming weeks, and I will be in contact with the other committee members.
Thank you.
Put the note.
Any other new business? I will note, I think this is before our next council meeting, and this was one of the disadvantages to passing the ongoing yard sale ordinance, that I believe our citywide street sale is coming up here in May. Yes, correct? Is it the first? Mrs. Franzen?
I believe it is the weekend of Mother's Day, which is May 9th, 10th, and 11th.
All right.
Yes, and you can apply, you can tell the city, you don't have to pay for a permit, and you can do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any combination thereof. So if you have Mother's Day plans, don't feel like you have to have a sale then.
All right. The other thing that I will announce under new business, and I believe that the final details of this are still being worked out. It sounds like May the 1st will be the dedication of the Bridget Kelly Norwood Lateral. It's my understanding that Governor DeWine will also be attending this, but I do not know all of the details yet, as this was just brought to my attention earlier this afternoon while I was at City Hall. But as soon as that information is all confirmed, I will forward that out to all of council, and we can also have that information posted on the city sites as well. Any other new business? All right. We have no communications. We have no absent members. Mr. Braden,
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to adjourn, please.
is there a second? Mrs. Franzen?
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Franzen. Motion to adjourn. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Franzen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoover?
Yes.
Mr. Royce, I'll vote yes. Mrs. Bowling?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Girton?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Absolutely.
All members present voting
Please
yes,
do.
the motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned.
So we don't